Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay? Welcome everybody to the first ever Freedom Talks. This is also the first event of the 2025 God Tour. So you are all here because you felt on some level some spark or some curiosity to know God directly. And that is so cool. That's so remarkable to fill a venue like this with people who want to know God directly, to connect directly with Source. So I have a few logistical points. We'll hop into these first, and then we'll drop in and wait for Bentinho. First, we would love your help to keep this event disruption-free. So if you're loud or distracting, we might ask you to leave. Please double check that your phones are silenced. And just give it a double check in case you have one of those alarms that's like a rogue alarm that you didn't expect, but that's gonna go off halfway through this event. So just give one of those double checks, please. For those who don't know, restrooms are all the way in the back. You follow the white line on the floor. So if you need to go to the restroom, follow the white line on the floor all the way back to the restroom. And we ask that you go now or you wait until the break, which will be about halfway through in about 2 hours. So either go now or in about 2 hours. Obviously, if you need to go in between, you can, but just to limit distractions again. And a final reminder that we would appreciate no recording, no long recording. We are live streaming right now. So this whole talk will be available for free for you online afterwards. So no need to record also. Great. So before Bentinho comes on, I want to invite you all into a little more presence, the present moment. And one good way to do this is to notice whatever you came into this room with. Whatever expectations or predictions, whether you've been to Bentinho's events before or whether you haven't, and you're a little nervous or a little skeptical, you came here with something, some prediction, some expectation. And the more you can relax that expectation, the more you can receive exactly what it is that this event offers. So let's all take a deep breath in. And release. Let's do one more. And on the exhale, release some of those expectations and come more and more into the present moment. So let's do this a few more times. I'll step off stage and pretty soon Bentinho will join us.
Hello, can you hear me? Welcome. So I noticed if I sit down, I can't see any of you, and you probably can't see me. So I'll stand up. Thank you for being here. Is this okay with audio, video, if I just stand? Okay. All right, let's take a moment to connect to what is already present. So take a deep breath. And as you exhale, let every thought that you have, every observation that you can make about this moment, any of the contents of your experience, you just let them rest. You just give them back to life. Don't sweat about anything. Give it all back to life. And what you notice with a simple moment like that is that something else becomes available, something else becomes present, something else starts to emerge naturally. So when the mind stops, or at least softens and relaxes, that which we are so familiar with, that which projects form and name and separation and individuality. When we give that back to life, when we release that right to think so hard, to project so outwardly, then the space needs to be filled, just like in a void. A void, in a sense, cannot exist. A void does not want to exist. So when you make room for something, when you empty something, then whatever else is present there will fill in that void, will fill in that space. And so what you notice, and let's do it again. So take a deep breath. Notice your mind. Notice this active component within yourself. And you just let it rest. You just give it back to the ocean of energy, which is life. And see if you can stay quiet for just a few seconds. As if empty. Almost as if you don't know yourself at all. As if you have forgotten who you were. As if who you have been or who you have thought yourself to be doesn't matter anymore. Just for a few seconds. Take another deep breath. And relax this idea, this feeling of yourself as a person in the world. And see if you can recognize an emptiness, a space that remains. And in this space, when you disown yourself, when you let go of what you think you are, when you make room, what begins to shine forth, if you continue to stay awake, if you pay attention, if you stay alert, is the beginning stages of God recognition, of God consciousness. Okay, little survey. Who here, raise your hand if you've never been to an event with me. Okay, that's a lot. Nice. And raise your hand if you're new to these types of teachings and you have no clue what we just did. Okay, nice. All right, fewer. And raise your hand if you're not familiar with my work at all, and you just came because you saw a poster, essentially, or word of mouth. Okay, a few. Sweet. Well, welcome. God, what is God? First of all, my premise, my claim is that God is existent, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it. So do I believe in God? I guess you could say I do. And then the next question is, okay, if there is such a thing as God, what is it? What does it consist of? And my next premise or claim is that anybody with an awareness of their existence can learn to know God directly, as you've seen on the flyer. So there is a God, and I'm going to try to explain what that is from my own direct experience, and I'm going to show you through your own direct experience that you can begin to access this reality, and that God is not something that is outside of ourselves, that God is not something that requires religion, that God is not something that you can only think about. Even if you believe there is such a thing as a source or a universal field of consciousness or an underlying intelligence that governs all the planets and their orbits and the people and the synchronicities in your life, and your feelings and emotions. So even if you do have an understanding that, of course, there is something intelligent present here, you are not limited to thinking about this. And I want you to move, even though this is an introductory session, in a sense, because I don't know you yet, and maybe, again, you just saw a flyer, and so here we are, and it's a freedom talk, so it's for everyone. So I will hint at some of the deeper levels and some of the deeper instructions, and we'll see how it goes with the Q&A, what you guys are asking for. But my first intention here is to get a bit of a consensus reality on what is God, why it is so useful, and why it's so great that you came today for the rest of your life. And then how to directly access it, because I would love for you, even after today, to really realize that you don't have to think about God anymore. You don't have to think about freedom anymore. You can actually experience it directly. You can know it directly. Can everyone hear me if I speak at this volume? Yes? Back in the room? Okay. Okay, cool. All right, so what is God? Raise your hand if you believe in God. It doesn't have to be the guy in the sky, but if you believe in some intelligence. Okay, maybe raise your hand if you don't, if you feel comfortable in this crowd. No, please, if you don't believe in God, please, it's nice to have an honest answer. Okay, sweet. Thank you. So, you mind if I talk to you? Sweet. Okay, so you don't believe in God. Correct. What's your image of God?
I don't know.
Okay, nice. Okay. Do you believe, and this goes for everyone, I'm just talking with you, but it's really a conversation with everyone. Can you recognize that there is something here that exists, that you exist?
Yes.
And that there is a consciousness or an intelligence. There's an ability to recognize, to feel, to see, to know, right?
Yes.
So in that, you believe in consciousness, you could say?
Yes.
You believe that you exist?
Yes.
That's great. So these two are synonymous. God and I exist, or God and consciousness are, in my book, synonymous. So, do you believe in God?
If you put it like that, yes.
Sweet. So, and this is part of the reason why I want to give these talks, is because, and it's okay, you can turn the mic off. Thank you. Yeah. So this is the problem. I mean, we've been doing this for millennia, and for lack of a better word, God's really fucking tired of everything that we've been doing in His name. In other words, consciousness, if consciousness could get tired, it is really fucking tired with everything that we've been doing in the name of intelligence, or in the name of truth, or in the name of source, in the name of God. Now, God doesn't really get tired. The state of consciousness that I'm going to be speaking about today, which I'm going to try to convey to you as best as I can, at least the possibility of it. If it could get tired, it would let you know, it would want to let you know that it's time for a change. It's time for people to know directly who they are. And so my other claim is that what you are is a God, that God and I am are one and the same. So that's important enough to write down. So notice right now the fact that you exist. Just the sheer fact that you exist. So you can look in your hands if you want, at your hands. And just the mystery of life as it is. Just to pause long enough to acknowledge that, how the hell how the hell am I here? How the hell are we here? How is this even possible? If there is no God, if there's no intelligence behind this, if there's no source behind this, then it's even more miraculous. So in a way, if you're not religious, you would be even more religious, because how? Like, how is this possible? Just the sheer intelligence of anything you can observe, like anything you can observe. Now you could say, okay, the podium here, it's dead, but still, how does this exist even? And how can you know that it exists? Not to mention the realm of your thoughts, your emotions, your relationships, your hardships, your spiritual lessons, even if you're not a spiritual person. The synchronicities in your life, the coincidences. All the trillions, septillions of stars and their orbits, and all those light years between them. It would be really incredible if there was no God. It would be difficult to believe that there is no intelligence that's governing this, that somehow, out of nothing, arose something, which kind of goes against that basic premise. Something cannot come from nothing. So your access point, the beginning to recognizing God, is to be in awe of the mystery. Now, most of you guys raised your hands, and most of you are familiar with some of this type of spiritual teaching, I suppose. But your starting point, if you're not quite sure about the intelligence being existent or not, in other words, there being a God, a source or not, just observe anything. Pause long enough, pause whatever you think, whatever you believe, long enough to observe the intelligence that is proven by literally everything. Your body, your mind, the world, your relationships, the stars, science, and so forth. So that's the starting point, is to have an open mind towards the existence of an intelligence. Now, you don't have to call this God, and definitely I don't want you to think of it as a person. But I would like you to be able to appreciate, for starters, that there is this intelligence, that there is something that's governing our creation, that there's something that's responsible for your experience, something that makes it possible, that enables your experience, your everyday moment experience. So can we sort of agree on this, that there is something intelligent here? You don't have to call it God, but everything is evidence, everything is proof of some kind of intelligence. Even random objects and the way that they swirl around each other in space seems to be quite intelligent to me. So my basic definition of God would be intelligence. That there is something that is intelligent. Now, intelligence might not have a form. So, we often think in terms of objects. We reference things as objects. We look at each other almost as objects, moving objects maybe, but still, we kind of objectify each other all the time. You project that I'm standing over here as a separate body. You think that you're sitting down as a separate body in a physical dead chair, and so on. So when I say, okay, God is intelligence, and it's directly accessible, but we'll get there in a minute, or knowing myself, we'll get there in about 30 minutes. But first, the basics are important. So when you look at an object, any object, could be a person next to you. Actually, maybe have a look. Look to your right. You'll see the back of their head if they all behave nicely. But just look around a little bit and get a sense of how your mind is used to producing a sense of otherness, a feeling, a psychosomatic sense of, okay, there's objects over there, there's people over there, there's a whiteboard over there. Just get a sense of this spatial feeling, this mental, psychic feeling of distance and objects and other people in the room. Just get a feeling for that. It's a bit subtle, but it's always present. So when I say God is intelligence, then what am I pointing to? What is intelligence? And again, if you look at this object like this bottle, it has a shape, it has a color, and it doesn't encapsulate this intelligence. But your intelligence, your consciousness, is aware of the bottle, no? There is something here that you cannot deny within you, right now, that's hearing my voice. Takes no effort on your part. Have you noticed? You're hearing my voice. Doesn't take any effort. You might not understand anything I'm saying. You may not even speak English. But you're hearing my voice. There's no effort within that. So there's an intelligence, there's a consciousness right now that's aware of any object in this room. This intelligence is itself not an object, but you cannot deny that it exists. And this is why, because it's not an object, it doesn't have a form, this is why we've missed it for so many years. This is why we have outsourced it to religion or to just being a philosophy. And we've lost touch with the direct knowledge of this incredible freedom that we have. And I'll get into a little bit into why this is an incredible freedom, why you should be interested. You don't have to be, but I'm going to give it my best shot to tell you why you should be more interested in this intelligence than you have been up to this point. Even if you are a spiritual seeker, even if you've been to retreats like this before, I would still love for you to walk away prioritizing this. And you will never prioritize what you do not know the value of. So I want to make it clear to you today how incredibly important and valuable and beneficial this stuff is to your life. For you to know this intelligence intimately, this profound oneness, and this love, this bliss, this happiness, this integrity, freedom. God is freedom. I would just write that down. God is freedom. But then you don't really have much to go on yet. But since it's formless, okay, so we've acknowledged very basic steps. In my upcoming book, which will be for free, so you can download it if you want, in a few weeks, and we'll give you an excerpt here, I will go through this process much more methodically, quote-unquote scientifically, so that you can really get step by step by step by step, be guided into this process and deconstruct some of the existing ideas and illusions and come more and more and more into a freer, more immediate knowing, an intimate knowing of this intelligence, so that the benefits unlock within you and start to transform your mind, your body, your spirit, your relationships, your world, everything that your ego is interested in. So we kind of have to get the ego on board in order for it to recognize God, because that's the end of the ego. So you gotta sort of trick it a little bit, right? Whose mind is interested in formlessness? Okay, nice. Well, aside from the seasoned crowd, if you get a sample size, if you just walk around the streets in Amsterdam and you get a little sample size and you ask people, are you interested in investing 2 hours a day? Just a hypothetical number. Are you interested in investing 2 hours a day focusing on something that has no form? Yes or no? They will likely say no. But if you ask them, would you like to focus for 2 hours a day? And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to focus on this 2 hours a day, but just as an arbitrary number. Would you like to focus for 2 hours per day in such a way that the result of this is that you will never suffer again, even when your body and your mind suffer? When you're deeply frustrated, when you're deeply anxious, when you're deeply in pain, you will not suffer. You will experience bliss at will. You'll be able to experience profound bliss at will. You'll be able to act with love and honor and integrity and fairness, no matter what's been done to you. You'll be able to generate energy within your body and within your mind, no matter the circumstances. You'll be able to feel a love that you cannot describe, that's even greater than the love that you feel for your firstborn child. And you can feel that at will. What if I told you there's a way to focus for 2 hours a day where you would feel the richest, the freest, the most immortal and unconquerable you've ever felt, and literally nothing can affect you or touch you or harm you? Then maybe more hands would raise in that little survey on the streets of Amsterdam. But if you ask people, would you like to know that you are formless, the ego is not very interested. Or sometimes I call the ego the gremlin, right? So there's got to be benefit. If you do not perceive the benefit, that's why I kind of have to put a little bit of a carrot in front of you. I'm not going to do that too much. I'm just going to be super honest with you what this is about. You can make up your own minds. But if I don't let you know about the benefits, then likely not much will change. You will not reprioritize how you use this precious intelligence that right now hears my voice, that is completely available to you. And so check in with yourself experientially. Take your attention back to the here and now. And again, take a moment to recognize that you hear my voice, that there's somehow this magical, mysterious, intelligent awareness that is hearing my voice. And you can only marvel at it. You can't explain how this is. But by marveling at it, by bringing your attention back to the magic, to the mystery of this awareness that right now hears my voice, you start to move your mind more towards that formless intelligence. And this is where it gets tricky for the untrained mind. How do you recognize something that has no form? You can recognize my body easily. You can describe it. You can paint a picture of it. But how do you recognize something that is formless? Well, the good thing about God is that it does have a quality. Not in its most absolute level. But God has a fragrance. God has an aura. God has an expression by which every living being, at least humans that are able to be self-conscious and self-reflect like you, are able to recognize God by. Okay, this is a gift. And I'll describe it in several ways. I've already described it to you in a couple of ways. But this fragrance by which you can recognize God, this quality, this formless quality, okay, so it's formless, so it's hard to recognize something that has no form. Because you keep thinking, you keep imagining in terms of space and time and objects and dimensions. So how do you recognize something that's completely formless, such as God, such as your own consciousness? By the quality of I am. It's the quality that allows you to begin to recognize God. And this is like a sphere that just keeps expanding. The more that you tap into it, at first, it's just subtle. There's a subtle peace. There's a subtle contact with your essence. There's a subtle feeling of relaxation. There's a sigh of relief. There's a feeling of, of course, I'm over here. I forgot myself. I got so busy doing what I do. Got so busy thinking and planning and getting through the activities of my day that I forgot all about I am. I forgot that I exist. So you can't really say that I am, that your consciousness, that your existence has a form. You can't say that, okay, it's the form of my body. Right? The feeling, that subtle feeling of I exist. So again, see if you can calm your minds for a few seconds. Just a few seconds. Take a deep breath. Relax. And now place your attention on the experience, your experience, that you exist. For a moment, just acknowledge that you exist. I am. And you can repeat those words in your mind. Just to focus on I am, or I exist. And it's a feeling of being. It's the quality that you are. It's not what you are. It's not about being this or that. It's not about your personality. It's not about your clothes. It's not about your body. It's just the experience, that innermost recognition that you are. And if you can keep the mind in that for just a few seconds without filling it in, like a child filling in a coloring book, if you can prevent your mind from filling in that formless quality of being, just for 2 to 5 seconds is what I often instruct, because everyone can do that. And it's enough to get a taste. And when you have a good taste, you want more. When it tastes good, you want more. When it tastes good, you want more. And so you will instruct yourself to repeat this. But see if you can recognize the quality of I am. Even though it's formless. But it's still a quality. So quality, you could say, is some kind of a form. It's something for your mind to hook into, to connect to recognize. So, anyone here who does not feel that they exist, can you raise your hand? Do you believe you do not exist? Anybody? Okay, cool. Great. Maybe that's a question for the next session next week, because I'm sure some people there will raise their hands. Yes, okay, so the quality I am, the quality of being which is formless, is your access point. It's that flavor, the direct experience of I am. Now there's a difference between thinking I am, so you can use the words I am. Just say to yourself, I am, I am, I am, and kind of picture the words. I am, I am, I am. And it can help. It will bring your attention already closer. It's like it's drawing the attention back from the world, closer towards your, you could say, your heart, your center, or your over-here-ness. So you pull back your attention and you settle it back into its home, its source. It's like you're sucking attention back. And the words I am can help you remember that. Like, oh yeah, wait a second. I got so busy projecting all these things outside myself, thinking I'm a world, I'm a body inside of a world, and these other people, and I have to do all these things. But if I just take 2 to 5 seconds, where I take a deep breath, I relax, I let every thought I have rest. I just let it rest in this spacious field of awareness. I give it back to life. I release it. I let it go. And for those few seconds, I recognize the formless quality that I exist. Just that. Anyone having trouble recognizing this formless quality that they exist? Please feel free. Okay. Great. Any of you that want to explore this a little bit? Yeah? Want to come up? Yes? Quality, sure. Anything that is recognizable, that has either a force, a flavor, a sense, anything that you can recognize, basically, would be a quality. I'm sorry, raise your hand. Who asked the question? You asked the question just now?
Yeah, I asked the question. Is it a measurement of value toward a standard?
Sorry.
I say, isn't quality a measurement of value according to a particular standard of excellence?
Isn't quality, oh, I see what you're saying. Isn't quality a measurement of standard?
According to, a measurement of excellence.
According to a measurement of excellence. So here you're talking about like having quality, like a subjective judgment of being worth something, or being really good at something, or delivering quality work, right? Yeah. Well, you could say like that as well. But when I say quality, and thank you for asking this, because I've been in this world since I was 10 years old. So sometimes things that I take for granted, things that I'm so used to, okay, what's the quality? It's a great question. You see, so please do give me feedback if you don't understand something, especially during this first part of the session, as we go through the few basics that I want you to get, that I want you to walk away from. And then again, in my book, which will be for free, you can dive in deeper if you are sparked, if there's an interest here. So what is a quality? Okay, a quality is basically anything. That doesn't help too much, I guess. But anything, how do I say this? Anything, when I say quality, I mean literally anything that has anything associated with it. Anything that you can experience. Yeah, so the emphasis here is on, especially in my body of work, quality would be anything that you can that has recognizability, right? So it could be a feeling, it could be a sensation, it could be a warmth, it could be bliss, it could be your body, it could be a bottle of water. Anything that has a bottle of water has multiple qualities, you could say. But if we're talking in terms of states of consciousness, which is what this work is all about, if you go to a more formless state of consciousness, in other words, if you wake up more, if you open your mind, if you open your consciousness and you allow more of this intelligence to penetrate, to permeate your consciousness, so that you and God are becoming closer and closer in how you see. You start to see, experience the quality of God as God experiences the quality of being. So then, at some point, you could say every state of consciousness is a subtle quality of energy. It's a subtle quality state of consciousness. So you could also say a quality is, in this work, a quality is a state of consciousness. It's an experience that consciousness is having. So anything that you can recognize because it has a quality. It stands out in some way. It's not nothing. It's not the undivided oneness that you cannot differentiate between. There's something that stands out, even a little bit. If you have a tablecloth, I forgot to bring my tablecloth. If you have a tablecloth and you pinch the tablecloth and you lift up a little point in that tablecloth, you begin to generate a quality. Does that make sense? Because it's now differentiated from something else. Therefore, you can recognize it. If all there is tablecloth, flat tablecloth, then that would be its only quality, I suppose. But the moment that you start to create some shape into it, now you have a more defined quality, and therefore it's more recognizable. It's just like the letters on a piece of paper. You know, how often do you recognize the paper when you're reading a book? 99.9%, only if it's bothering you, or like you have a paper cut, or like whatever. But without the paper, there is no book. There's no reading. There's much more of the book that consists of paper than of ink. But we don't really care. Like I said, the ego doesn't want formlessness, right? But if the book itself would say, hey, if you learn to recognize the paper and literally read between the lines, then you will experience endless bliss, freedom from suffering, even while you're suffering, and so on and so forth. Now suddenly, you would take, the ego. I don't like to call it the ego so much, but everyone is sort of familiar with it, so I'll roll with it for today. Then the ego would be more interested to recognize the quality of the paper itself. But the quality of the paper itself is subtler, it's more formless than the words, the letters on the page. The letters on the page have more quality that are distinct. Therefore, they stand out. Every letter is different. up to a point. And then it stands out and you're interested. We're interested in things that stand out, that have more quality, that shout louder, that have more form, more sensation, more color, more, and so on. More prestige, more value, more society attributed quality to it, and so on. But essentially, this might be a step too far right now, but from the God state, there is only undifferentiated oneness. From its original level of consciousness, of this intelligence which hears my voice, this is your gate. There is a gate in the back of your mind. There's a door. Okay, the door is open, but it's cracked ever so slightly open. The breeze that's coming through that door from God into your mind, into your brain, into your body, into your experience, that little breeze is what you can now recognize as this background feeling of I exist. This quality, an experiential quality of I am. And again, we're so used to thinking that it's subtler than that. So it's easy to miss it. But it's also so obvious, even if you are an incessant thinker, even if you're thinking all the time and you're highly intellectual and you're trying to understand this with the brain, even then, can you acknowledge that you must exist before you can think? As Descartes discovered, or not discovered, but said, I think, therefore I am, meaning not I am because I think. What he meant was, it was his answer to the question, do you exist? Do you exist? And he says, well, I think, and because I think, I must exist. So if you can think, you must exist. If you can think, you must be. Without you being there, you cannot think. So think all you want. This is another part of my message because I think it's unfair in a way for the modern day seekers to be asked to completely stop their minds for extended periods of time. Like, when's the last time you've been thoughtless for 2 minutes straight, consciously, not when you were sleeping? Raise your hand if you can remember the last time you didn't have a thought, but you were fully conscious and awake, not a single thought for 2 minutes. Oh, nice. All right. Well, that's pretty good. I saw like 5 or 6 hands go up. But that's my point. Now, if you were able to do that, okay, if you were able to stop your mind, which you are, but if you were able to stop your thinking, all your imagination, all your reference points, right now, everything you're thinking about, my voice and so on, for, let's say, 2 minutes, without losing consciousness, without like falling asleep, but staying brilliantly awake, very alert, then this realization would come very easily to you. However, it's not something that a lot of people off the bat can do. So when they're looking into meditation and stuff, it generally takes a while for them to develop this quality. And it's not absolutely necessary. Because any experience, it doesn't matter what it is. Any experience, it could be thoughts, it could be feelings, it could be your house, it could be your partner, it could be your career, it could be a painful sensation, it could be a blissful sensation. All of this depends entirely on being. And therefore, it doesn't matter what you experience. It doesn't matter whether you experience being late for an event, waiting for the train, having an argument with your wife, making love to your wife, sitting quietly in meditation, sitting chaotically in meditation, trying to quiet your mind, succeeding, trying to quiet your mind and not succeeding. It doesn't matter what the quality of your experience is. All of it confirms that you're aware of it, no? Have you ever had an experience that you were not present to? What's the last experience you can remember that you were not present to, and yet you had that experience? Anybody? Hello? Okay. Okay, so it doesn't matter what your experience consists of, and this is another beautiful revelation, and this is part of the benefits, and this is part of what I want your ego to hear, so that it can cooperate with your spiritual journey a little bit more. It can cooperate with what's in your best interest. And very little of the things you think are in your best interest from a bigger perspective are actually in your best interest. A lot is just a waste of time. And you know it. It's no surprise to hear this. You know that a lot of what you're doing is a waste of precious time. It's why you feel guilty. It's why you feel unworthy. It's why you feel bad about yourself in the background. It's why you procrastinate. It's why you feel like you're not fulfilling your potential. You know this background subtle guilt feeling that only temporarily goes away when you're having a really productive on-point day. You know, those like 1 in 100 days where just everything flows and you really get a lot of shit done and you're like, yeah, and you feel accomplished by the end of the day. But then how do you feel the next day? Do you still feel accomplished? Do you still feel fully happy? And in every other day, even if you do get a lot of stuff done, if it's not a really perfect flowy day, can you recognize this background sensation of guilt? Of, I'm not doing enough. That's because that's true. This is energetic physics. And I'm here to tell you, I'm sorry to bring the news, but this sensation is never going to leave you alone unless you turn your attention to I am more and more frequently. Doesn't matter what you accomplish, doesn't matter how important you think that it is in the eyes of society, your family, or your judgmental parents, which now have become your own judgmental mind. It does not matter what you accomplish or how active of a day you have. And there's nothing wrong with having a really productive day. That can be awesome. However, that guilt feeling in the back, that procrastination feeling, that feeling of I'm not doing quite enough, there is more, this seeking will never leave you alone until you find. And what is it seeking? What is this intelligence that has blossomed into form, in the form of your body, your mind, your spirit, your life? This intelligence that hears my voice, this formless beingness, which is with us now. What does it seek? Any thoughts? Itself. Thank you. It seeks itself. It wants to know itself. And it's that simple. It's that simple. I was going to say more, but it's that simple. So you might not completely yet understand or be able to identify in your direct experience what I'm talking about with the I am. And even those of you who think that you do know what the I am is, I guarantee you, and here comes the analogy of the door that's slightly open, I guarantee you there's much more to this. There's much more to this than you can ever imagine. There's much more to this than you can ever possibly imagine. So it's not just this boring mindfulness practice of, oh God, I have to recognize I am over and over again. It may sound like that, but again, that's because the ego is not on board. It's sabotaging the process. So that's why I want you to know what's on the other side of this potential if you decide to go through with this practice. Okay? And it's not for everyone, although ultimately it is. But you may not be ready for it. You may be ready for it, but I'm here to let you know approximately what you can expect so that you can then decide if you want to get yourself on board or not, but at least you have the means, you have the tools to recognize God directly, to become one with that intelligence, and to let it change your life completely, every single perceived quality and aspect of it. What was I going to do? Okay, well, so, yeah, doesn't matter. It's that simple. You recognize I am. Oh.
Seeking itself.
Yes, very good, very good. Thank you. Okay, so the I am, which again, these are just words. It's not about the words. Very, very, very important in spiritual development, any development really, is you want to take your knowledge out of the mind, which is the map, and into the territory. When you're driving a car, you need a map or GPS, but that's intellectual, right? That's theoretical. It's an overlay, it's a two-dimensional picture of a real three-dimensional experience. Anything I say during this talk that you absorb intellectually, which is great, it's not bad, it's good, it's useful, but it forms a map, it forms the theory. Literally, it takes you out of your direct experience, and it's like your intellect begins to draw a map, a two-dimensional flat map of what I'm pointing to. But to experience the liberation, the freedom, the bliss, the joy, the intelligence, the timing, the perfection that is yours, if you only want to take it, you have to drop out of that intellect and experience the terrain. You have to make it experiential. Goes for everything, but it goes especially for concepts or qualities that have to do with what's beyond your constantly intellectualizing, mapping mind. Okay? And again, this is where the ego is not on board, because what it sounds like I'm selling is stop all this interaction, stop all this engagement, stop all your entertainment, the fun and the value and going out and being better than this person and then even better than that person and trying again when you're not the best person and so on. All of that seems so entertaining because it's got so many qualities to it, such distinct attributes. It stands out so much. It's so easy to recognize these things. It's much harder to recognize the fact that you exist and to bring that into your consciousness, into your attention, so much so that it starts to fill up your entire being, your body, your mind, your spirit, with a different quality, the quality of God. So yes, the I am always seeks itself. This is why you will never, 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 ever be satisfied with this or this or this. And you have proof for this. You don't have to take my word for it. How many of you are perfectly satisfied now, all the time, every day, every conscious minute of every day, without that background feeling of procrastination and not doing good enough? Okay, cool. I see one person that's enlightened. Welcome. We should have tea afterwards. Oh, you have a question? That makes more sense. Unfortunately. Can we get him a mic? Okay. Oh, sure. Yeah. Different color. Okay. Yes. Any other requests? Yes. Good point. So I was saying, I am always seeks itself, which is another way of saying it would be I am seeks to know itself, because it already is itself. You've never not been you, no matter how many emotions you were having, no matter how many thoughts you were having, no matter how deluded you might be in some kind of a projection of this person did that to me and therefore this and blah, 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 blah. All these projections are these little bubbles that your consciousness, your original consciousness, then moves out towards. If you learn to take that attention back, it's like you go fishing. You throw out your, I have no fishing terms that I know of. I should have prepared a different analogy. But if you go fishing and the hook on the wire goes out there and then you reel it back in, right? Did I do okay? So it's similar to that, but with your own attention. This is why your mind, your active thoughts, don't matter so much. For the people on the left, I'm pointing at one of the dots. So one of these bubbles, one of these dots, are like, it could be anything. It could be any quality within your experience. Right now you're experiencing. It's like you are a field of I amness that's experiencing different qualities, different sensations. You're hearing my voice. You feel your buttocks sitting in the chair. You feel whatever emotion might be there. Other sounds in the room. And all of it right now is just being present within the I am. It's all occurring to you. It's being known by this intelligence. Now the mind is a quality. Whatever thought you have is a quality that's appearing in front of you. So if you take the image of the I am, and you kind of picture these lines that go out to those objects as quite literally, that's the extension, that's the projection of consciousness towards a certain object with a quality. So right now my voice, as an example, let's say my voice is one of these dots. And you are here, you are I am. Notice, see if you can identify this process of the line, the projection, the fishing, casting your fishing line. See if you can identify in your experience, in your psychic, mental, consciousness experience, this energetic phenomenon where you go outside of I am, you leave your sense of presence, you leave your sense of I am to go and focus like a tunnel vision starts to form. Each of these lines, each of these projections is like a tunnel. Zoom, it's extending. And then at the end of the tunnel, you see whatever you see. It might be a thought about your neighbor. It might be a thought about your partner. It might be a thought about your career. It might be a physical sensation. But you become myopic. You have tunnel vision. If you can identify the tunnel experientially, again, this is just a map. This is not the real thing. You have to look in your direct experience to find this. Can you find this energetic movement of, you could say your mind or your attention, to go out of yourself, to leave home, to leave being, to leave presence, and to start entertaining a thought about something? If you can feel that, now you're in much greater control already. Now you still have to apply that control or mastery, but if you don't know that this is what you're doing, then you're lost in infinite bubbles that keep projecting themselves, and therefore you always feel like you're forgetting someone. It's like leaving your child home when you're going on holiday. There's this nagging feeling, like the Home Alone movie. Like she's on the plane, fuck, where's Kevin? This is Kevin. Right? And here you are on the plane because you were so absorbed in whatever you were absorbed in. Because, like a kitten will look at whatever is moving the fastest, whatever has the most distinct quality or attribute that is recognizable. The more recognizable it is, let's say a faster moving toy, as opposed to a slower moving, maybe food even. Sometimes you can even take their attention away from something as important for their survival as food, just by making it move faster and make it more interesting than the food in that moment. Make it either seem more threatening or make it seem more valuable. This is how our egos work very similarly. It's like a kitten's mind. So picture the kitten, and you have this plushy toy at the end of your fishing rod, and you move it. And it doesn't matter what else is going on. It completely forgets that it exists. It completely forgets what it was doing. And it follows whatever has the most quality of movement, and so on. So that's because this is the most recognizable thing in their experience. And so naturally, automatically, kind of like a slave of the conditions of the world, their attention goes there. And you do the same thing with the news. for instance, or social media, or what your partner is wearing, or what they say to you. They might say a lot of beautiful things to you, but there might be one point of critique which to you screams the loudest. So what do you focus on? The point of critique. You don't even hear their intention. You don't even hear the care with which they brought that point of critique, because they know you're going to freak out over that little point of critique. You didn't see the sincerity with which maybe they tried to offer it, and so on and so forth. So there's so much going on in your interaction with, let's say, a relationship that you don't notice or don't honor. You could notice it if you wanted to, if you were more honorable. But honor requires that you're no longer a slave of this automatic losing yourself, leaving your home, leaving your presence, your sense of consciousness, your sense of I am. You got to keep that door more and more open, so that the wind, the breeze of God, of the oneness, of that intelligence, of which you are inseparable, can show itself to you because you're home. If you're not home, you won't be able to know this. You got to be home. But this is why it belongs to all of you. It doesn't belong to religion. It's not inside of a book. I'm working on an awesome book that will help a lot, but it's not inside the book. It's only available in your most innermost experience of being. And if you don't recognize this, again, I am seeks to know itself. It has evolution, it goes out, but then it has involution. So as long as there's evolution, if there's the externalization into manifestation, the form of your life, again, your relationships, your thoughts, your passions, your creation, your law of attraction work, whatever else you're doing, this is all about forming and becoming. Nothing wrong with it, except that you forget I am. But the moment you move out, even if it's beneficial, even if it's a positive manifestation, even if it's positive work that's serving you and other people, for instance, perfectly fine. The moment you move out without remembering I am, you will automatically feel that gravitational pull back. There's no way around this. I've searched, I've tried to cut through it. It doesn't work. The seeking impulse is your lifeline to source. Now we could say, your feeling of I am is the beginning of God. But just picture an infinite space that does not exist apart from this consciousness which hears my voice, this beingness, the I am that needs to be here before you can hear my voice. The I am, the existence that has to be here before you can be sitting in this chair, recognizing this experience that we're having. That's the start, that's the door. And when the door begins to open, and how does it open? It opens every time you draw your attention back into your source, into your presence right here, into this formlessness. Don't try to make it into an object. Don't try to be turning it into a spiritual experience. All you recognize is the formless presence of knowing that you exist, that you are. Just that. Don't worry if it's not big bada boom, special, infinity realized. It can become that. And this is part what I'm also going to share about, is how deep this can go. And so that you kind of know what you're signing up for if you want to. But you're in control of how far this door opens. I'll go here. So just picture a door here. The door in the back of your beingness, the back of your I amness. And it's just cracked slightly open. There will always be a crack. Even if it seems completely closed, the keyhole still lets in some air. Otherwise, you wouldn't exist. And again, the breeze, that quality of God that can lead you farther beyond, that you can know directly for yourself. So you can stop thinking about God. You can stop speculating. You can actually know God. Know God. I know God. And there's nothing arrogant about saying that, which again we'll get into in a bit as well. You can actually know God. Actually know source. Actually know reality. Because God also equals what is real. That door is always cracked slightly for everyone. I don't care how stupid you are. You're not, but anybody out there. Obviously, you guys are very smart. But there's other people out there who are a little disadvantaged. And it doesn't matter what their brain capacity is. It doesn't matter how deluded they may be or how much of a religious nutcase they might be. Think about anybody that's doing crazy stuff in the name of God or in the name of atheism or whatever it might be. The most deluded, convinced of their own ideas, minds, that are most in those bubbles and have no clarity as to reality. They're just in their imagination. This is true, this is true, this is true, this is me, this is what you did, da 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 da. People are lost in the illusion completely. They still exist. They may not be able to recognize it because of how myopic they've become, how zoomed in they've become, how identified they've become with their own projection. But you can, on their behalf, recognize that they exist. This is the start of compassion and love and oneness, to love thy neighbor as thyself. Means to recognize the I amness within them, no matter how stupid they are being towards your body, which is not you, which you also begin to realize. That's why you can become unshakable in your conviction, in your freedom, is because the I am will show you, I'm not my body, I'm not my person, I'm not this thought, this idea of a body, of a mind, of a personality. It's all included, but it's not what I am. When you really know this, when you open that door more, and I'll share a little bit more about what that's like, so you can get more curious, maybe, hopefully. One of the qualities that comes naturally with God, with the formless quality of I am, the more you open that door, is unconditional love. It is compassion and understanding for others. And not as a Buddhist principle. Not because it sounds really cool, or that's how we should live, or because society says we should be compassionate. No, it naturally occurs because when you know yourself, not your body, not your mind, when you know that you are, and when you know that formless I amness, and you start to merge with that, your consciousness becomes that greater consciousness, and it starts to know the nature of God or reality or this intelligence which enables everything you can possibly perceive more and more clearly. The quality of you, what feels to you to be you, like your individual feeling of I am, starts to take on the qualities of God's I am, the universal, unconditional, formless I am. And that's the process of that door opening more and more. Now, you're not going to get this on day one, and that's okay. And maybe, I'm not saying you will never, that it's not possible. It's possible, but it's just rare. So don't expect an infinite expansion per se, although would be nice, wouldn't it? Actually, who would want that even? Yeah? Would you want to know experientially the complete freedom of this formless intelligence that is responsible for every single possibility anywhere at any time? Would you like to know that directly? Yeah? Cool. Nice. Good for you. Well, no, honestly, that's wonderful. And I'm saying, again, we got to sort of get the ego on board. If you want, a more valid question actually is, who would want in this lifetime, a more realistic question, okay, a more honest question in that sense, who would in this lifetime want to realize that? Raise your hand. doesn't have to be now, it could be 20 years from now, but who in this life would want to genuinely realize the nature of God, the nature of reality, and blend their consciousness with the actual, indescribable source code of everything, right? So that's good. But then how do you get your ego on board? Because for the most part, it was the ego that raised its hand when I asked the other question. Like, who would want this infinite expansion right away, right now? Who would want to know that right now? Part of it was your heart, because I am seeks its source. But part of it is the appeal of like, okay, I'd rather not listen to this guy talk for much longer. I'd rather just have the end result. So while I appreciate your candor, it is unrealistic. I'm going to tell you that. It's unrealistic. And here, how are we on time? This is a timeless watch. It doesn't work. 40 more minutes. Okay, good. Perfect. So, 40 more minutes to tell you about, give you a glimpse about what it's like to have your mind blown. Okay, so realistically, right? Because I love you guys. And I'm not saying this because I'm on stage and I'm high on euphoria and I'm a public speaker and like, I just want to feel, let's all just love each other. I genuinely, sincerely can say that I love you. Like, I don't care who you are. I can look at any one of you. I could also not look at you and still love you. So that's one of the things that will come with this, is that you will stop to feel like other beings are not yourself. There is this transcendent knowingness that comes over you where you feel the other person's essence. You know it directly beyond the mind, and your mind might be having an interaction with their mind, and you might talk about this, the weather, whatever. They might share about this beautiful spiritual unicorn dream they had with you 3 years ago, and you could pretend to be interested in that, as a spiritual teacher. It's like, oh, nice, beautiful, significant dream, very good. So we might, this is just one example. Obviously, you could have all kinds of interactions with another being, but so there might be this interaction happening. But when you get awake enough in the God state, all of that kind of disappears. Not that you cannot recognize it, but it's like when you're in a different room and it's muted and there's a conversation going on in the room next to you. And it's almost like nice to fall asleep to, huh? Sometimes when you hear muffled people, they're just, I can't make out what they're saying, but they're having a conversation in the room over. It's like, yeah. It's a little bit like that. It's peaceful. Everything that normally feels so real to you from a mental point of view, from the bubbles that seems real and harsh and linear and antagonistic and separation and duality, all of that softens. It's like the ice becomes water, and then the water becomes steam. And there's so much space between all these interactions and the words. And so I'll see your lips move, and I understand that you're trying to tell me something. And on that level, I also recognize what you're saying, and I can respond to that. But my consciousness is aware of the same presence that is everywhere. So that is what it means to love another as yourself. It's not metaphorical. It's literal. Yes?
What is the definition difference between consciousness, ego, and I am? Just so that when you
Yes.
I can understand what you mean by consciousness.
Sweet. What's the differentiation between the term consciousness, ego, and I am? Good. Okay, let me draw. I am and consciousness are more or less synonymous. So you could see them as two sides of the same coin. And the way to understand this, that's why in order to experience God directly, you can either There's many ways, so to speak, but the two primary qualities of how to recognize the quality of God, no matter where you're at, so what everyone can access right now, you don't have to be fully enlightened to access it. Your starting point right now, how you can experience the quality of God is either through one side of the coin of God, which is the quality of being, or I am. It's how you know or feel that you exist. It's the feeling, the inner knowing. It's more a knowing than a feeling, but it kind of comes with a feeling. So it's that inner knowing / feeling that you exist. Just that. A formless quality, subtle quality in your experience of recognizing I am. The other side of that same coin, it's not a different thing, same coin, is the quality of consciousness or awareness. You can also recognize right now that there is something that's aware of my voice. Can you recognize that? There's something that's aware of your body, something is witnessing it. There's a knowingness. So we have beingness and we have knowingness. Or we have I am and we have consciousness. Or we have I or isness or presence. And we have awareness. Those are all synonymous. And just pick sort of whichever word for your mind right now is the best mirror to give you a sense, to give you a taste of this reality, this intelligence, which is the first thing you've ever experienced. And it's in truth the only thing you ever experience. You've never experienced a table. You've never experienced a body. It looks that way, but you haven't. The truth of your experience, upon deeper investigation, I'm not telling you what is true for you now, that's up to you, but I'm saying that in truth, what I've discovered when I investigated more and more deeply, what am I actually experiencing? The only thing I can experience is I am. Everything else is imagined, is referenced, is somehow I need to think about it. Even when I bump my toe into a rock and I go, ow. I have to think about that. I have to think towards that. I have to create a line. If you remember the last one, it's still up there, but I have to create a line that goes out from my presence, out of my experiential sense of being, consciousness. I have to create a picture, an image that pictures my toe over there, gives it the spatial location. I have to label it toe, and then the sensation will hit me. So you can actually, if you gain enough power, you can even mute sensations from your consciousness. That makes sense. Because, now it's more difficult to do with things that feel really physical, but it is possible. If you learn how to withdraw your attention into your I amness. But okay, this is one of the more deeper aspects that come later on, which might confuse you at this point. So let me start, because now I have 30 minutes left to tell you about what it's like to get your mind blown. Can everyone see me like this? Okay? All right, so again, if you have questions about the terms, we can also do that in the second segment. We can have some Q&A interactions. And my book shall answer so much of that for you. There's the methodology of this, the language of this, it's going to guide you through. It's just not something I can do in a short session like this. So what's my core intention here is from a state of love for your freedom, for what you deserve, for what is true. I want you to gain direct access to God, and I want you to know why this is valuable so you can get your ego on board. That's my intention. You don't have to like it. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to resonate with it. This is my intention. So let me proceed with trying to get your ego on board. I've given you some basic access to this experiential state, and we can do a short meditation to amplify that. But now I want you to realize, why are you sitting here listening to this, what you think of as another body? Why? And I'm so happy you're here because of what's possible for you. And you have no idea. I don't mean this cocky, in a cocky way. I really don't. I mean this in an exciting way. Like, you don't even know the start of it yet. You have no clue, okay? I'm not just instructing you to go become a mindless person that's counting their steps every day, like a good mindful Buddhist would. Or is practicing compassion, but it's not really alive and it doesn't feel free and it doesn't know the bliss of God and the expansion of infinity. I want you to know that if you open that door further, to whatever degree you open that door, to whatever degree you are able to rest in that I amness and open that back door to God, so to speak, then the expansion that begins to arise starts subtle, but already very, very, very beneficial. So even a short moment of awareness where you are aware of being aware. You get that? You are aware, a moment where you're conscious of, I am aware. And if you learn to feel that quality is different from any other quality you know, that you can project with your thoughts. There's all these qualities out there, but the quality of recognizing I am aware, already, I'm aware, I am, and I'm aware, has a different quality to it. It's the quality of coming back home. It's the quality of ease, of relaxation, of contentment, of peace. But it has much more depth to it than just that. It has an expansion to it. Okay, this is why this is about knowing God directly. That's just the flavor of God. That's just the expression of God. That's the fingertip of God. You know that picture? It's like, okay, when you're touching upon your I am initially, it's just that initial contact. So here's the mind, the little self, and then here's God extending all the way down into your consciousness as the sensation I am. That's where you make contact with reality. Reality isn't out there. You cannot find it through a telescope. It's all imagination, I promise you this, but you can discover this for yourself. No telescope, no microscope will ever find God, because God is the one that's looking. Okay? So if you start to look for what's looking, now that feeling of procrastination and guilt and not being good enough and not having done enough is going to be liberated from you. So the first thing you notice when you start practicing this, when you just take 2 to 5 seconds of stopping this outgoing energy with your mind imagining this and that, and you just take a brief pause to be aware of being aware. This experiential, direct, intimate state right here. I am aware. First thing you notice is this. It's that sigh of relief. It's that subtle end of the day of hard work. Okay, I've done my duty. Now I can beat myself up no more for about an hour before bed. I've done enough to prove to myself. This is the analogy. This is not what happens when you do this. But this is how you know it from normal life, okay? From the deluded life, from the illusory life. You know it when you've had a hard day's work. It's been satisfying. You've done a lot, and so now your mind will judge itself as competent, like successful, satisfied. This is the example I used in the beginning. And then you lay back on your couch, whatever, you go watch a movie, have a beer, do whatever you do. Aren't those some of the happiest moments in your life? Those insignificant little, like half an hour, end of the day kind of relaxations where you feel like the world kind of disappears and you're just chilling with yourself. Don't these just feel so good other than sleep? You basically do the same thing in sleep, but you're not conscious of it typically. So, but picture that, but then 100 times more pure, where there is this sigh of relief because you're actually consciously waking up to your nature, to the intelligence that's doing the looking. You are stepping into God consciousness. Instead of looking at the atoms and at the stars. Through the telescope, you're looking at what's looking. That is the intelligence which perceives everything. Everything. And as you open that door more, what happens is your entire world experience turns inside out. Without any belief system required. Without any thoughts. Okay? No ideas. If you stay with the I amness, that formless awareness of awareness, what happens naturally with practice, you got to practice God consciousness. If you want God consciousness, you got to practice it. When you practice it, what begins to happen as that back door opens wider and wider and more of that intelligence flows through, it will turn your world inside out. From, there's a real world out here and I'm walking around inside of it and I'm conscious inside of it, to I am eternal consciousness, or intelligence, inside of which there are a trillion, actually infinite, possibilities that are waving themselves into appearance. And so your entire relationship to yourself, your body, your mind, your partner, your life, your career, all of it will change. At a pace you're comfortable with, usually because you're in control. But sometimes your higher self says, you know what, you're going a little too slow, I'm going to give you a bigger glimpse. And yes, it's going to change the way you view your relationship, or it's going to change how ambitious you are for this career that's not in alignment for you anyway. Yes, you're going to resist that a little bit, and la la la. Okay, we've done that a million times before with your other incarnations and so forth. So here you go, have a little glimpse. But for the most part, it is up to you how much of that valve you open. But when you open it, there is God, and then there is God. And then there is the bliss that you've never experienced before, except in little measurements, little pinch of salt, little pinch of God consciousness every once in a while comes through. Those are your best fucking moments in life. When you're completely in the flow state, when you're completely in love with your partner, when you look your newborn baby in the eyes and you just go quiet for a minute, and there's this impersonal love. It's not personal. The moments you've loved the deepest were impersonal. Have you noticed? Now later on you might describe it as, oh, that was my baby. And it was so intimately personal. But in the moments when you felt the greatest, purest love, where you felt yourself expand to something universal, something that wasn't just a person wanting something from someone, let alone from your own child. It was impersonal, and yet it was the deepest joy, the purest love that you've known. That's because the impersonal is the real. The personal is the false. Anything that's personal to you is horseshit. It's made up. It's one of the bubbles that you made up. That's not reality. What you're thinking right now is not real. What's real is the awareness that hears my voice. And inside of that God, inside of that intelligence, this conversation is seemingly taking place. If you're more established in this, once you become more established in this is going to feel very different. Let me try to explain how this occurs to me, this conversation. It doesn't. Except on a very shallow level that I can project my consciousness into. No offense, I don't mean to call you guys shallow. I'm just saying the shallow level of reality view. Like, it's like projecting my consciousness into a dream that I've had a few nights ago. Try to imagine that you can project your consciousness back into the dream that seemed real 3 days ago. Right? And you're there again, same dream, same people. Oh, maybe you make a change. Whatever, maybe you say something else. And then you can go back and not be aware of that dream. So the way that this conversation is happening, it's from the deepest level of me, I am. This conversation, I'm aware right now that this conversation is not happening for me, to me, or in me, except as an idea, as a dream. But I'm also aware and appreciative of the fact that this is happening within a certain realm of the imagination of the collective consciousness. And so I can sense that, and when I project my consciousness here, I can see my body, I can hear myself speak. But simultaneous to that, there is a deeper level that's even beyond the I am, which I can talk about a little bit if you want, where stuff no longer happens, things no longer appear. But don't fear that this will make you lose everything, although it will. But shit, I was going to try to avoid this one. I want to get your ego on board. This is not helping. But it's a natural process. It's a natural process of internal ascension where your consciousness blends more and more and more with the God consciousness. So if you picture this as in the East, they often use this analogy of the space in a jar. So here's a jar. Thank you. Here's the jar. There's space in the jar. No? There's space inside the pot. But there's also space outside the pot. So there's space inside the pot, there's space outside the pot, space everywhere. This pot represents your ego. So to still answer your question, the ego is an effect that doesn't really exist. It has no real existence. All there is awareness, consciousness, I amness. That's all you ever know. You think you know other things, but that's a thought. What knows that thought is aware being, consciousness, I amness. So always, all that you actually know is aware beingness. Everything else is just an assumption, a thought. So the ego is an effect. It's the ego effect. Just like the rainbow doesn't actually exist, but the water, the moisture in the air does, and the sunlight does. Put these two, quote-unquote, real things together, or these two processes together, and you get a third derivative effect called the rainbow. If you move from here to here, the rainbow moves from here to here. It's not really out there. It's not real. Your ego right now is not real. It's an effect of consciousness or awareness, which is hearing my voice, and it's formless, and it's pure, and it's impersonal, and it's ultimately universal, and it exists inside the pot as well as outside of the pot of your body and your mind. And within that intelligence, there is a vibration seemingly happening. There is a dance. There is this intelligent form-taking that's taking place. If you combine that power to know, which here's my voice, your power of being aware, if you put a filter before that, like when you go to the cinema, there's the pure light, and you put an image in front of that light, and now the light will be distorted. It takes on an effect, it's shown on your screen, and that's what the light appears as. But that's not the real light. It is the real light, but it's distorted. The ego is like that. It's your awareness that here's my voice right now, in combination with a concept, an image. So whatever concept you have of yourself, whatever you've been conditioned to picture in your mind when you think of I am, that picture, first of all, needs to go if you want freedom, and it will go with this practice. But when that picture is there, when the light of your I amness shines through this sort of unconscious or subconscious image, what you then project is this feeling of I am Bentinho, and I am this, and I feel this, and I like this, and I don't like that, and so on and so forth. So then the ego is the effect of true awareness shown through the prism, the filter of your mental image. There is no ego. There is no ego. Already, right now, as you're sitting here, all that's happening is you're aware, but check for yourself. You're aware, no? Okay, so that's settled. You are conscious, you exist, and you have some kind of an assumption of yourself as the body, You think of yourself as the body, as the mind. That's one of those projection lines. That's one of those fishing lines. There's awareness over here, pure awareness, impersonal love, universal space outside the pot and inside the pot. It's not just inside the pot. The space of I am exists everywhere, as all things. It's the basis of everything. This is your awareness right now. And then in front of that awareness, there is a picture that you have, a self-concept. A concept, an image about yourself. Or you could say countless of concepts, but all of that together is a concept of self. And that produces the idea, the feeling that you are an ego, that you are a person. But nothing is happening like that if you look.
So in practicing this, I found that there's this moment when everything seems to disappear, and then there's a startle, like, oh, and then I'm back. And I don't know how to get past that point.
Sweet, beautiful. Remind me, and in the second segment, I'll start with more Q&A and answering those kinds of, to see where you guys are at with the practice.
Nice.
So I will remember, but just in case I don't, because dreams are a little bit funny, someone remind me to start with this question, yeah?
Thank you.
Okay, how much longer do I have? Okay, sweet. So, I amness leads to infinity. So, currently it feels to you, most likely, I don't mean to say what you're experiencing, but this has been my experience with most people, is their feeling of I am is kind of locked in a jar. And you could roughly say that's because of the experience of the body. Right, so there's all this air inside the pot, there's air outside the pot, there's no real distinction. When the pot breaks, when your ego effect shatters, when this illusion of I'm separate from my perception, I'm separate from this consciousness, I'm an individual person. You have individual free will, don't get me wrong, but you're not a person. What even is a person? It's a construct, no, it's a concept. It's not really your experience right now. Always stay real, stay scientific. Scientific means, not look at a microscope, scientific means what is real, what's empirically real. And right now, all you can say for sure is I exist, and this I amness has an experience of some kind of a form. That's all you can do without assuming, without forgetting, without becoming unscientific. Anything beyond that is religious. Now, you might call that concept atheism. You may believe that there is no source, or there is no God, or there's no intelligence, but that's a belief system. There's nothing scientific about that. Side note, but anyway, my book comes down hard on that. The air is the same outside the pot as inside the pot. When the concept of self starts to be seen through, and you draw your attention back beyond that layer, into the I am, into source, there is this expansion that happens. Can you guys see it over there? No, huh? So the air that seems like, okay, it's over here, this feeling of I am over here in my brain or in my body or in my heart, begins to expand, okay? And this is where things get interesting. This is where you get into the sort of trippy territory that some people seem to chase through psychedelics and stuff like that. But let me tell you, no psychedelics, at least the ones I've tried, which admittedly is minimal, but still, the high dose that I did take, for instance, does not compare to the realness, the reality of infinity. So when I took a relatively high dose of DMT, for instance, I've done it a few times. The one that I did with the highest dose took me to a level of consciousness where everything was happening all at once, therefore there was no time. So It's like you can sense, you can know everything that could ever possibly happen across time and space, but as one single field, like as just a super complete high vibratory state of consciousness where everything is happening all at once, therefore nothing is happening in sequence. Does this make sense? If everything is happening now, there is no time. So it was a timeless state of consciousness. Something I'm familiar with in my focus and meditation, but it's just amplified. It's given more quality, more attributes through the DMT thing, but actually I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I've realized the source which is real, and therefore even the most insane, expansive experience that was induced through stuff, through things, could not compare with the realness of reality. So even though people might describe this as intense ecstasy of that state that I was in, where everything was known at once, to me it felt like a burden, because I had already realized what I call absolute reality directly before I ever took that. So I had the comparative material to say, hey, this is not real. So imagine the most intense roller coaster ride, psychic experience. You're blasted out of your body. You're going through these. For those who know DMT, know what I'm talking about. And you come to this state that has nothing to do with planet Earth anymore, but it's the most intense you've ever experienced or felt and experienced. The quality is so rich and all-encompassing. And so there you are in timeless infinity, seemingly. And you know that this is nothing but a picture arising in your true self. This is why without this true realization, it doesn't matter what your experience is, no matter how much incense you sniff or DMT you take, it's not going to give you reality awareness. It's not going to give you God consciousness. This is something I wish I could make it easier for you. I'm trying to make it as simple as I can, but I can't make it easier for you because this is physics. It's the actual physics of consciousness. It's the physics of how this dream reality, this grand illusion of perception works. And so there's certain mechanics involved that are set up by this intelligence. And the seeking impulse is calling you back into that source. This is why, again, you feel like you're seeking, or you're frustrated, or you're not happy. It's because I am seeks its source. Okay. So this awareness that hears my voice, picture that awareness expands beyond your sense of a body. As if it's sort of shifting to a deeper dimension, where this world of form and shape and time kind of takes a back step. A step back. Becomes less important, less real. And there's something else that, because you're opening that back door into God, through the I amness, through your own consciousness, through being aware of being aware, as you start to vibe at that level, if you will, if you start to resonate just by keeping your attention on I am aware within you, not me, you, your me-ness, your innermost me. Notice your innermost me of I am aware, that quality of I am aware. Now picture that the world disappears into that and it expands to infinity. Where you, at some point, become that infinite underlying reality inside of which everything ever known, ever created, anything it could ever possibly be, appears to exist inside of this infinite reality. And I can only tell you it comes with a perfect happiness. That's nothing like you imagine. It's not like you see in the magazines or the cartoons or even like the mindfulness stuff. It's not like it's not ordinary. It's fucking ecstatic. It's crazy perfect. Like it's unimaginably lifetime resolving. It takes away everything that was ever untrue and replaces it with the reality of infinite, absolute freedom. And the stepped down version of that, the quote-unquote lower level version of that, is to simply connect with this I am aware. That's how it begins. But I'm telling you, this is like a water slide. And once you let go, it starts to accelerate, and the water helps you along the slide. And you just go deeper and deeper into, you follow the rabbit hole, like in the Matrix. And you realize more and more of the truth. And the world and consciousness are turned inside out. Instead of awareness inside of a world, it becomes a world of perception inside of awareness. And you start to actually know, intuitively, directly know, the nature of reality. Actually, what's real. Which is God. But that's just a name. Objective reality is also just a name for God. The scientist tries to figure out what's objectively real. The religious person tries to figure out what is God. Same question, same answer, different terminology, different ways of thinking and going about it. But objective reality, what's objectively real, what's always real, is what the religious person calls God, or what I call God, and I'm not a religious person. At least I don't consider myself to be. God and reality are the same thing. Just because you see something doesn't make it real. You understand this, right? You've seen enough examples and memes and optical illusions and quantum mechanics, and where okay, what my senses are telling me doesn't necessarily mean it's reality. It's perception. I'm perceiving something, I'm thinking something, but it doesn't make it real. So, but what if you could step behind that veil? Actually, you, not just me or someone else. If you could step behind that veil, and realize, see, quote unquote, without your eyes, see with your consciousness directly, the true nature of reality. That which all the scientists in the world are trying to figure out. That which the religious person is worshipping from a distance, conceptually. What you want to know, is this something you're interested in? And again, for your ego, it comes with bliss, it comes with peace, it comes with joy, it comes with happiness, it comes with power, it comes with freedom, it comes with stability, mental, emotional stability. You become more and more unshakable. The more you know that you are, the more you know I am, that I am, that I am, the more you know I am aware, I am aware, I am aware. The more you activate that consciousness, where you're just observing your body right now as it's speaking. As it's speaking, you're observing it. Something deep within you is observing this whole space right now. Something in you knows that this room is happening or appearing. Recognize that awareness. Rest in that awareness. Abide in that awareness. Become more conscious of that awareness, which is that subtle quality of being aware, of knowing. Being/knowing. Two sides of the same coin. Either you can notice I amness, or the sense of being, or you can notice that you know that there's this clarity, this vividness, this cognizance that knows. Either way, you're connecting to the same essential substratum of all perceptions. This I amness, the great I am. The more you know this, the more the benefits that you hear about in spiritual books about enlightenment and descriptions of God become your qualities, start to express themselves through you. And the pinnacle of this is a realization of the absolute level of reality, which I cannot describe to you. It is infinity, it is perfection, it is beyond everything you've ever experienced. It's beyond experience. Makes sense that if experience is so deceiving, that absolute reality would not be an experience. And somehow it can be accessed. If the what exists? Does the jar still exist? Okay, so the question is that correct me if I didn't hear you correct, but if in absolute reality, or in a realization of absolute reality, I think what you're really asking is, do I still experience the jar? Or will you, if you realize absolute reality directly, will there still be a jar? Right? Great question. So if the jar is your experience of having this body, and having this mind, and having your relationship, and having this particular timeline that you're experiencing, yes, it will still be there, but it's like you're watching a movie, more so than it is who you are. It's like, oh, I'm sitting in the cinema seat of the creator of this infinite space. Imagine an infinite theater. You can look left, you can go, there's infinite chairs. Bit of a stupid analogy, but you're in this infinite space. The screen of the movie of your life couldn't be there. So your internal feeling is, my life is happening in that realm of that level of consciousness, which is right now hearing my voice here, which is projecting this particular level of the form of the dream, just like a dream at night. Yes, it's there, but it's also not ultimately real. So there's a simultaneity. They exist at the same time, at their own level. That's why I say, from my innermost experience, this is right now not happening to me, or in me, or as me. It's not touching absolute reality. But it is like a dream inside of absolute reality, using the power of consciousness, which is the God state, as I call it, to visualize, to imagine, to create, down to the very subatomic particles that we think exist. They don't really. But this whole thing is so intelligently, masterfully designed that it's so deceiving to the consciousness, that it's so convincing. But that is its purpose, okay? So in a sense, what I'm offering you is a breaking of the purpose of why this is here. Think about a movie. Like, if a movie is really good, you're really engrossed in it, right? It would be a bad movie if it pauses every 10 seconds and says, hey, just to remind you, you're sitting in a theater. And then the movie would continue. Okay, you're just getting into it. You know, Tom Cruise I just saw Mission Impossible last night. Great flick. You know, and you're right there into the action, and then it pauses and it says, hey, just so you know, so you don't get lost in the illusion too much, you are sitting in a cinema. Okay, got it, thank you. And the movie continues. So by design, how this intelligence has designed this illusion to be so real, it's got a purpose to it. And then so why am I spoiling this? Why am I even encouraging you to break this illusion? Why not just watch the movie? Good question, I should maybe stop. Well, here's the thing. I know that there's nothing I could ever say that would be more convincing to you if you didn't really want it than what the movie has to offer you. There's no way I can compete with your cat at home who's waiting for you, or with your next sexual experience with your partner, or with the dinner you've got planned with your friends. There's no way anything I say to you here could compete with that level of interest. Just like if you were sitting, you paid a ticket. In this case, you paid with your life to see your movie. You incarnated, you came through the birth canal, it was all very messy, painful for both parties. And usually, not always. Anyway, so you paid for it with your life. You signed up for this movie, and here we're getting more into metaphysics, and it becomes a little bit less empirical. But okay, just as a story, if you will, you paid with this lifetime to be here to watch this movie. There's so much purpose behind that, there's so much interest behind that, why you are here, that there's nothing I could say about the illusion of this that could take you deep enough to break that if you don't really want to break that illusion. However, what I'm offering you, and what I do think most people can apply, is a hybrid. From there, you can take it as deep as you want. You can follow the rabbit hole, break the matrix, or you can eat your steak, as they say in the movie. So the hybrid here is have your life, have the appearance, have this movie, but why not remember this basic essence that you are? Why not bring attention, more and more consciousness into this quality of God that's with you now, this intelligence, this vividness? Take 2 to 5 seconds, 12 times a day, where you stop imagining, stop referencing, stop creating those fishing lines out towards your cat, your partner, your money, your sensations, your own body. You radically stop thinking. Everyone can do this. Just got to find the switch. But you can start, not for 2 minutes at a time, but for 2 to 5 seconds, everyone can find that switch, I promise you. For 2 seconds of supreme will, coming into the here and now, the present moment. You can look at your finger if you want. Or a hand in front of your face. Find a way. Okay, but will yourself to bring all of this mental this, that, all this illusion to a stop. And in that moment of stoppage, recognize the natural, space-like clarity of being aware. It's experiential. It's a shift. It feels different than anything else within your mind, within your imagination, within your body. It's different. It has a distinct quality. It feels like a different dimension of being. Just like if you're in your dream at night and you wake up to the waking reality, it has a different feeling to it. Oh, this is real. You say when you wake up from your dream, you say, oh, this is real. When you were sleeping, you had no fucking clue. You had no ears, but you could hear. How were you hearing in your dreams without ears? You could see, but you had no eyes. How did you see in your dream without eyes? You had no real body, but you could feel. How did you feel in your dream at night? And up to the very moment that you woke up in your bed in this dream, weren't you absolutely convinced that that was all real and outside of your mind? It's set up that way. There's dreams within dreams, kind of like Inception. There's levels of consciousness. Every level of consciousness has its own dream. When you're at that level, when you're vibrating at that level, that is meant to seem real. That's how God designed this illusion of perception, of creation. So we can dance through that and we can awaken that this is what's happening. By means of I am, or being, direct attention on being, or, same thing, different angle, direct attention on I am aware. That is God, or at least it's the beginnings of God. Yes. Quick question and then we'll have a break. Why is the I am projecting these dreams? Very deep question. Very good question, very beautiful question. Let's have a break, and then I'll answer your question, and your question, if it's still alive for you, when we get back, and then we'll take it from there, yeah? Okay, thank you guys, enjoy.
Hello, hello. Everybody make your way back in if you can hear my voice. Make your way to your seats. Okay. Amazing first leg of this Freedom Talk. This next portion is going to be mostly Q&A. And we have a mic right here. So if Bentinho calls on you, he'll give a prompt and let people raise their hand if they want to ask their questions. If he calls on you, this is the mic that you will come to. Can everybody see what I'm pointing to? This mic up here. If the conversation seems like it's going to be a little longer or more in-depth, he might invite you on stage with him, in which case Sume, right here, will hand you this mic, the one that I'm using right now. So you can join Bentinho on stage if he invites you up. A couple other little announcements before Bentinho comes on. So in your pamphlets, everybody got a pamphlet, you'll see a QR code where you can download a free booklet that we made based on the book that Bentinho has been referencing today. So this book is a large, super comprehensive book into knowing God directly. It's called Me, a Book About You. And what we did in this pamphlet is we made a little booklet that is just a compilation that'll be useful. It'll be sort of an intro, and it's totally free. You can download it. So it'll give you a little bit of context into this book. I think it's a beautiful book, especially if some of this is new information to you. But even if it's not, I recommend it. Also, for those of you who don't know, this is the first of 7 events for the God Tour. So the God Tour is made up of 7 events. 2 more of the events will be here in Amsterdam, including one next weekend based on the topic of non-duality. So it's more of an advanced talk. That's going to be at Het Sirad. Het Sirad. So that's next week. And then we have a weekend immersive, August 9th and 10th at De La Mar Theater in Amsterdam. So that's a 2-day, more intensive. You kind of deepen more into this work directly. In addition, we have a few freedom talks in Berlin. We have one in London. And then we'll have a week-long residential retreat in Croatia. So that one is what I'm most excited about, I have to say. This is where I met most of the people that are now on the team. It's sort of the most memorable times of our lives have been at these residential retreats. So it's a week-long in Croatia. All of this, again, is in your pamphlet. And that's it. There's a little hangout after this again in the lounge for about 2 hours after the event. Okay, everyone, thank you.
Okay, so why does the I am, where are you? Same spot? Hi, why does the I am produce anything, right? This dream, yes. Great question. That's why. It wanted to smoke cigars. I'm still answering the question. Thank you. Yeah, I will get to that one, but I'm still answering this one. Thank you. So it's a really deep question. And one that I wasn't able to fully understand until I penetrated through the subtlest membrane of consciousness itself and popped out of all of creation, and all that was there was infinity, a perfect infinity, which I could say I knew or I experienced, but that's not correct, because at that level there's only itself. Otherwise it's subject, object. So when I recognized absolute reality, the source of even consciousness, the source of even this sense of presence, truly the source reality out of which anything began to begin with, where time itself began. From that, anything arose to begin with. It's only from that level of reality that question really gets answered in a satisfying way, experientially, at least for me it did. And it's difficult to describe, but I can humanize it. I can put it in terms that almost sounds a little bit like a human movie or a sentimental story. And so And that's fine, we can do that. So in that case, I would say infinity wanted to keep itself company. It wanted to, in a sense, not be alone, although it's not lonely at all, but it wanted to see itself. It wanted to know itself. And if you have nothing but infinite source reality, and there's no this or that, there's no you or me, there's no space, time, nothing. Nothing is differentiable. Nothing can be differentiated. There's no qualities. There's no attributes. Nothing is known. There's just perfect infinity that cannot be described. Transcends all experience, because experience came from consciousness. And consciousness came from whatever is actually real, of which you are then potentially conscious of. Consciousness, even consciousness, which I call the God state, is a fragrance of reality. It is the first quality. That's why we have contact with it. It's our bridge. I amness is the bridge to absolute reality, to true infinity. And it's already its own reward. The I amness expands. And with that comes the joy and the purity and the stability of mind and emotions and insight and the clarity and the love and all that. That's already present as the qualities of I am, as the qualities of that consciousness that I've been pointing you guys to. But it's not yet final reality. It's not the absolute source at its own level. That is just before the I am or the awareness emerged. As Ra says, first there was infinity, and then second, infinity became aware. So in that sense, awareness, or I amness, or consciousness, is the first expression of this infinity, which makes sense because that's why then everything else is dreamed into being at different levels of realness and so on. Because it wants to know itself, it wants to express itself. In a sense, infinity is curious for infinity. You could say, again, this humanizes it. It's not like infinity thinks, hey, I'm curious about infinity, or, let's get it on. But to give you a sense of that, it is like the infinite one, which is one. Otherwise it wouldn't be infinity, because where would the first one end and then the second one begin? Hence there wouldn't be infinity. The infinite source is one. So this one, the singular, indescribable reality that's got nothing to do with experience, it's got nothing to do with perception yet, it cannot be described, it can only be directly realized. But again, that's down the line, if you practice. But from that state, when you pop out of creation, which sounds weird, but it's nice and natural. What you realize, what you know directly, because you are then infinity. Right now you are infinity. There's only one perfect unity. And in that one perfect unity, somehow there arises the potential, the desire to know itself. And infinity has infinite potential. It's got infinite means to know itself. One of these means is consciousness, and so it produces an entire creation within the realm of consciousness that then expresses this infinite potential in an infinite number of ways. So really what the Big Bang is the start of consciousness. Metaphysically speaking, it's the start of experience. It's infinite potential becoming available, becoming activated. Obviously in potential it always exists, but then it's activated. Now it's consciousness experiencing all these limitless possibilities. So the one wants to know itself in as many ways as it possibly can. One such a way of knowing itself is your individual sense of I am over here. So right now, the one that you feel is located, listening to my voice, is literally the one looking down that one scope. That's yours. You You don't have to call it you because it's not ultimately you. So you can, after a while, if you stop doing this, you can picture time. The one shooting a picture of itself. You can, if you learn to go beyond the layers of this projecting outward mind, like I was saying, you withdraw back through your telescope, you go back into that I am aware state before just before the mind, just a few seconds at a time, over and over again, a few seconds at a time. Just contact the I am aware state experientially. And that is akin to taking off the sense of I am over here, I am me as this body mind. And it's like you're taking that tunnel away and you are seeing beyond your pot, so to speak, beyond your individual husk, beyond the individual way through which this source is experiencing itself and exploring itself. And both are valid. I also still can do this. So the individuality and the individual free will is still there. But you can take that concept away so that you have, which you could say as an expansive realization of God's ever-presence, omnipotence, and so on, aka freedom, joy, love, unity, oneness, and so on. But you literally, even at this level, right here, hearing my voice right now, thinking whatever you're thinking about my voice, whatever you're thinking about what I'm saying, whatever you might be thinking about, whatever you're thinking about what I'm saying, all that is you, God, exploring itself, its infinite possibilities, in one very unique, particular way. So I'm not trying to take that away from you. I'm not encouraging you to deny that, because there is a beauty to that. It's part of the original intention. It would go against God, as many traditions do. It would go against God or reality's ultimate intention to express and explore itself, to completely deny that or make it wrong. However, the other side of that imbalance is to say, I'm just here for the chocolate and the wine, and that's why I came here. So shut the hell up with your enlightenment story. I'm just here to suffer and enjoy and feel the pleasures of the body. Okay, feel free. But then you wouldn't be here probably, because you'd be enjoying all that pain and pleasure and suffering and confusion, because that's why you're here, no? So here we are in that hybrid state. You're wanting to wake up more. You feel the call. You are seeking to some extent. Otherwise, again, I'm assuming you wouldn't be here. Unless you're here with the media for nefarious reasons, of course, because you lack any and all integrity, most likely. Depending, we'll find out. But anyone that's not part of the media here is here for sincere reasons, because they're curious. So there's some seeking that's happening. And this is the I am calling itself back. It's wanting to do a little bit of this. You can still maintain that, by all means, maintain your job, follow your passions, love your wife, love your husband, feed your pet. But wouldn't you also like to be able to have a look around in this infinite theater and see all these options from different angles and actually directly know the oneness that connects all of this? And feel the liberation, the freedom. Do you have an image of liberation? Do you have a sense, an intuitive sense of what is freedom?
Well, one thing, that you're not triggered.
That you're not triggered, that would be a result, yes? That would be like a symptom of freedom, you could say. It would be a result of freedom, that you become less and less triggerable. The more free you know yourself to be, the less triggerable you become. That you have the free will to choose, exactly. Instead of just this and whatever you're thinking about it, instead of just these extensions, these fishing lines, you have now the option, okay, do I want to throw my fishing line out there? Do I want to activate this perspective? Do I want to see it from this angle? Do I want to hold multiple perspectives at the same time? Do I want to understand the other person's perspective? Do I want to check in if I'm even being fair and objective in my perspective? Do I want to have any perspective whatsoever? Maybe I just want to focus on the presence and the love and a unity that is the reality underneath all of this. Maybe I just want to have faith in God and open my mind and feel that presence. So yes, your free will is reignited. You have free will, but in this mode, it's stuck, it's frozen. You've frozen the water, the fluidity of your free will. You've frozen it, you've cut it up into chunks, into ice cubes, and you've compartmentalized it in different layers of your freezer. We call that our shadows. We call that our subconscious. We call that, but it's all you. It's you frozen. It's your free will frozen. Every time you wake up for just 2 to 5 seconds and you prioritize, you make it more important to come.
Is your free will not an illusion? Is not everything happening?
That's the topic for next week. Are you going to be there? Okay, wonderful. And this is why I'm giving a non-duality clinic, because some of these things need to be cleared up. There's a few of those who here, raise your hand just briefly, who's going to be at the free talk next week, the non-duality clinic? Okay, cool. So this is more technical in nature, and it's more for those who have gotten used to some of the non-duality teachings, and in my opinion, there is some errors in misinterpretations of reality that I'd like to offer myself to clear up for those who want that. It might also be interesting for some of you who don't have that background, but it may be a little bit too heady or intellectual for your taste, I don't know. But so that's happening next week. So I'll answer, we'll talk about that. Thank you. Sure. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Basic.
Market rice is another one.
Okay. What is the other one?
Well, to me it seems like that the infinite. It's on. Hello. Yes. That it's projecting, getting stuck in the dream, and wanting to go back.
Mm.
This is what we're doing now. This is why we are here.
Yes. Well, the thing is, the forgetting of self. Ah, man, this is. I don't want to get into metaphysics too much. There's a. If you picture the full scope of God's dream. Okay, so any level, containing every level of creation as we know it, from dense to subtler to the dimensions and so forth. If you just have a sense of that, the vibrational spectrum at which the illusion can vibrate and appear, different levels of consciousness, therefore different levels of perception, just like your dream at night is different from your dream right now. There's a higher dream than this that will be different. It's still a dream, and so on. So within the illusion of perception, within the illusion of experience, within the expression of Source or the Creator, there is a thin band, a range, within the full range, that is specifically designed to forget yourself. But it's not the full design, it's not the full purpose of creation. It's only what we're experiencing at a thin vibrational level. So it's relevant for here, and it gives unique opportunities to accelerate awakening and to express in different ways, using free will in different ways, that you can't do if it's easy to remember and recognize yourself. So, yes, the I am expresses itself, or the one expresses itself because it wants to know itself, but then it forgets itself. It seems like it, but that's not true all across the board. That's only true in a particular video game within the full range of video games. That makes sense. It's part of the design of a certain video game to create a certain kind of experience. Again, I'm getting into metaphysics here, which I want to sort of avoid a little bit. But it's not universal. Forgetfulness of Source is not universal. It's not all across the board on all levels of perception. It is pretty specific to what we are experiencing at this particular level, giving us a unique opportunity to awaken from a state of forgetfulness and to experience things very differently as if they are really, really real, which offers a unique experience for infinity, which cannot normally, without those conditions, without those parameters, without that program, it cannot experience this degree of separation and anguish and sorrow and grief and loss and lack and threat and fear and pain. So it sounds a little weird. Why would the one allow for any of that? But that is one way through which it can express and know itself, is through delusion and forgetfulness. And it offers ways to see its infinite potential that it cannot activate in any other kind of state. So it's a subset, it's an aspect of the creation, but it's not universal across the creation. Just wanted to clarify that. I'm not sure if this answered your question. Or
It makes me appreciate the suffering more.
okay, wonderful. I'm happy that's the result. So she said, makes me appreciate the suffering more. Yes, it has purpose. It has purpose. Too much. So there's a chapter in my upcoming book. I'm so happy I am writing this because I can just refer to this. But it would be too much for right now. But there's a chapter on suffering, how to use and interpret suffering, what it actually is, how it functions, and it gives you real insight and tools on how to utilize that guidance system properly and how to appreciate it in a way that doesn't get you stuck in the suffering, like, oh, we're here to suffer, so therefore chocolate, wine, gambling, da-da-da. But it also doesn't make you like, oh, suffering, I don't want to have suffering. It gives you appreciation, a true understanding for suffering by understanding what it's meant to do. Imagine you're driving your car and your GPS is beeping at you and you don't have a clue as to what it means. It would be annoying, right? Same with suffering. It's your GPS, it's beeping at you. If you have no clue what to do with that signal, it's just annoying. It's just unpleasant. It's just unfavorable. You want to get rid of it. Stop it, stop it. But it's trying to tell you to make a U-turn. It's trying to tell you to go right, to go left. So in this chapter, I will explain in depth the mechanics, the actual metaphysics of suffering. Even if you understand just that aspect, your life is going to be changed if you just get that aspect. Forget about enlightenment and stuff. No, don't forget about it. But I mean, even without the awakening that I'm talking about here to the God state, if you just understand how suffering works, why it's there, what it's trying to tell you, how to appreciate it in the proper balance, it's going to make a big, big difference on your life. So check out the chapter on suffering in the full book. It's not in the booklet. It will be in the full book. Thank you. Hi. You asked about when you go into sort of a meditative state and you kind of start to open up or disappear or expand beyond the pot, there's this little like drop-in moment or a little scare moment, right? Can you say a little bit more? And what's your question again?
Okay, so in the little break, I had time to think about it and just let it be. And then another question arises, but I think it correlates with this one. So my question was, if you practice going into the I am and maybe even like the back door, letting the breeze through, there's a moment when everything just seems to like become nothing. And in that moment, I just get a little shocked and then get right back in like being Nikki and just this life and everything. And also what correlates with that is I had traumatic experience where I dissociated. So I'm wondering, like, is it a kind of dissociation that I'm getting? Because I don't know if it's really the I am that is happening, or I have no clue.
Great question. Would you want to come up here?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah. Because this sounds a little bit more like a process than a philosophical Q&A. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome, and thank you for your courage.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Okay, so traumatic experience can lead to the act of disassociating, the habit or the pattern to disassociate. And then as you practice these teachings and you go meditate, for instance, on the I am, and the world kind of starts to disappear, then the question can be at some point, am I bypassing reality? Am I disassociating from thoughts, emotions, worldly things, and so on, as a consequence of my self-created response, reaction, habit to a traumatic experience, which was the reaction of avoidance or bypassing or disassociating, to not feel that or to not hear that GPS beeping when you don't know what its purpose is, and it's just annoying. So yes, this can be a pattern that you carry with you into your spiritual focus. But I like the fact that you're even asking that question, which shows that you're considering that, right? So you are aware of the potential of that. Therefore, I don't think you have to worry too much about it. And the main question to distinguish, okay, am I bypassing? Am I disassociating? Or am I actually meditating? And I'm actually just having quote-unquote success at letting the dream soften and coming more into a formless presence. And really the question to ask in that moment, and you can do this now in your memory of when you do meditate, is first of all, how does it feel when the world starts to soften and dissolve? What's the frequency? What's the state of consciousness?
Yeah, it's just like I disappear.
And what remains when you disappear? Because if you disappear, something knows that you disappear.
Yeah, and that's the shock moment of like, I was gone, and then poof, I'm back.
Mm-hmm. And do you have, in that moment, when you're quote-unquote gone, is there any kind of awareness left for you, consciously?
No.
Okay, interesting. Mm-hmm.
I find it really hard because I just disappear and I'm not conscious, and then I'll get back and I'm conscious of that I was somewhere else. That's how it feels.
Yeah, valid. And how do you feel afterwards? How was that moment of disappearance on your system?
Quite relaxing.
Right?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So, good. It's not the ultimate state. It's not the goal. But there's nothing wrong with this. Especially because you're aware of this potential and you're asking yourself this question. So I'm not worried that this would be something that your ego would hijack as a way to avoid feelings or something. Not that you never avoid feelings. Obviously, if things get unpleasant, we all kind of like, oh, shut up, GPS. Again, once you really understand what suffering is, why it's there, how it functions, how you can utilize it, you will avoid much less and less. There will be no reason to avoid. You'll appreciate suffering and be able to use it skillfully. It becomes a friend. It becomes a guide. But until that time, if it's just beeping and you don't understand why, we're all going to do some degree of avoidance and trying to replace it or trying to fix it in our experience, right? Human nature, animalistic nature, we go towards pleasure. We try to move away from pain. So that's fine. We're going to do that to some extent. But you're conscious of this process. You're conscious of this potential tendency. So that's great. So then I would say, okay, appreciate those moments for what they are, which is you're taking your consciousness to a higher level, but you're not quite ready or equipped to maintain awareness of that higher level. So it's kind of like a body-mind reset. It's kind of like you're taking a deliberate sleep, and then you are aware at a different level, but then when you quote-unquote come back, just like when you don't remember your dreams at night, you come back here and it's like I knew I was somewhere else, or I was experiencing some other level of consciousness, but I don't remember what it was, and okay, here I am, but I feel refreshed, I feel replenished. So I would just treat it as something that can help your system relax and rejuvenate. And then the long-term goal would be to see if you can maintain awareness longer and longer as you approach that state of dissolution of this particular level of consciousness, so that you can maintain an awareness of the dissolution of the sense of ego and so forth. So then you can consciously enjoy the health, the sanity, the peace of being formlessly awake. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm quite excited.
Wonderful, that's good. So no judgment of the forgetfulness part? Just appreciate it for now as something that heals you, something that gradually prepares you, something that gives you benefits. And long-term vision, see if you can just stay aware slightly longer, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And you'll notice that in order to stay aware, consciously aware, when you go into higher consciousness states, so to speak, what is needed, or what it feels like, is you become subtler and subtler and subtler. It's not like, I'm going to stay awake, I'm going to stay awake, I'm going to stay awake. It doesn't feel like that. It's a different kind of staying awake. It's, can you stay awake, can you stay conscious with less and less form to hold on to? It's easy to hold on to a thought. It's easy to hold on to a feeling. It's easy to hold on to a water bottle. These are objects with many qualities and attributes. But can you hold on to the sky? Already more difficult. Can you hold on to space? Already more difficult. Can you hold on to formless being? Even more difficult. So as the objects start to disappear because you're going Super Saiyan 2 or Super Saiyan 3, then as the objects start to soften and you begin to activate the more formless, subtler internals of consciousness, to stay awake, to stay consciously aware of that, it's a very subtle sort of dance. It's just, can you just keep this subtle lamp burning in the background? Can you just stay subtly aware, as if you're aware of deep sleep? Imagine, what would it take to stay aware during deep sleep? Which is possible as well. In case you didn't know yet, you can be aware of deep sleep. So, it's like that. You don't have the mind to go on. Normally what we think of as awareness or awakeness is, I am aware of this object. I as a mind am aware of this object. But that's not real formless awareness. That's the pot. That's the layers. That's the assumptions. The associations with form. Take away all the form, take away all the form, take away all the form. And can you remain aware, remain awake, with less and less form? It takes a subtlety, and that's the real evolution. That's the involution, if you will. That's the I am going home and expanding itself again beyond its spot and knowing the universality and the oneness and the bliss, the love and the wisdom and the insight and the timing and the intelligence and the upgrades and all the good things you hear about in the books. They then become lived in you. Does this satisfy your challenge point?
Yeah, it does.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
too for the answers.
Yeah. Do you have a yes or no philosophical question, or do you have more of a process?
Maybe more of a process.
Okay, sweet. You want to come up here?
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi.
So, yeah, so what my question is about, first I want to say it's not 100% of the time that I feel that way, because I feel like the spiritual journey is like, can also be back and forth. But I feel in my day often kind of formless and stripped of character, and not even in a depressed way, but in a that I don't want or don't feel so much. And at some points it was kind of scary, but yeah, I just wanted to articulate that and see what you maybe say about it, because with this not wanting, you kind of ask yourself, okay, well, what I'm a young person, and what am I going to do with my life?
Yes.
So yeah.
Nice. And is this your question or is this society's question that you have internalized? Is this genuinely your concern or curiosity? What am I going to do with my life? I'm a young person.
No, it's just that I personally feel this balance, which I very much appreciate. Most of the time I feel very balanced, but this comes with not wanting and not feeling so much.
You have any other questions? Or shares?
I don't know what to do.
No, it's wonderful. But why do you feel you need to do something? Especially, like, if this were to make you depressed, or if it's like a form of nihilism, or solipsism, or something, then, okay, maybe it would need some work. There's an imbalance there. And I'm not saying there's no imbalance in your state, that there's no way to optimize the flow of energies, to still be channeling inspiration without identifying with it. That's all possible. So we can look into that. But if a state like this is not depressing to you, if it's not nihilistic, you understand? Right? So if you feel like you don't need to do anything, and you don't want that much, or maybe even anything at all for days in a row, and you're just balanced and peaceful, and there's this natural breeze coming through the back door of God recognizing itself, and then great, wonderful, start teaching.
What's nihilistic?
Nihilistic is basically to reduce everything to being meaningless, right? So you're, which can often be sort of associated with being at peace, like, because our society is built on achievement and accomplishment, and nothing wrong with that either. I like that game as well myself to some extent. But when you're then peaceful and kind of formless, if that's a genuine, spiritually connected, authentic state, it's not a disassociation or avoidance. And it doesn't lead to nihilistic views such as, oh, everything is meaningless, why should I do or want anything whatsoever? It's all an illusion anyway. That's kind of nihilism, right? And for the next week visitors, that's kind of the trap of non-dualism as well. It's sort of a hybrid between nihilism and understanding reality, if you're sort of in that bubble. That's why I want to help you. But if it feels good, if you feel balanced, if you feel solid, and it doesn't express itself as like, oh yeah, let's go party, let's go do this, oh, let's start a career, and you're just calm and peaceful. If it comes with a sense of love and joy, for the most part, and freedom and clarity, then I'd say you're on the right track. But if you can still up the clarity, if you're looking for a little bit more oomph.
I mean, the not wanting strips me from the energy to move anywhere, and I can't just sit.
Well, there's been people who've done it. They were just sitting, just sitting on their mountain, just being. Not suggesting this, but
I feel kind of maybe then also stuck in the spiritual journey, maybe.
Okay.
And maybe that's why. Maybe that's because I don't feel like I can access my soul. What do you think? Does the soul have character or like qualities, or?
It does, yes.
So it's individual, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we're talking about the individuated soul, yes.
So yeah, maybe that's like as a follow-up question.
Yeah.
How can I learn about my
exactly? So really, what you're asking here is, correct me if I'm wrong. What you're asking here is, what's my purpose? No, in a nutshell. Why the fuck am I here? Like, okay, beingness and all that. But why am I here? What should activate me on a day-to-day basis? So I'm writing a book, and I'm... like any aspect like this has has a backbone that's very expensive. It's integrated with other levels of how this is structured, why this is here, what core intention produced all this illusion to begin with. So there is nuanced, balanced ways to lead people into answers for these questions, and there's imbalanced, unnuanced ways to lead people into answers to these questions. So I'm long-winded, usually, in my explanations. I give a lot of explanation. I give a lot of nuance. I look at it from different angles. I want the questioner to understand what their options are, what might be happening, and so on. So I'm saying this now, and I made the joke about I'm writing a book because that is why I'm writing a book, so that all the main questions will be answered in a cohesive way. And in the interest of time, I will give you a brief suggestion here for now. So, okay, for starters, just acknowledge that your ability to remain balanced and calm and to not be too excitable can be a great thing. Just validate it as this is okay. You feel okay about it? There's more to be realized, but that's a great baseline. To have that emotional mental stability at your disposal. It might not be the most, lit, blown off kind of a wow, infinity everywhere, oh my God. But it is nice to have this mental emotional stability, even if it's a bit subdued, even if it's there's some layer suppressing it. There is more possible here in terms of inspiration and recognition and brilliance and brightness and clarity and all that. But it's a good baseline to have. So that's first of all. Then the question to ask yourselves when this arises is, the question he's asking is, why am I here? Right? And we're all asking that from time to time, I hope. This is why the illusion was produced originally, okay, before it became a sinful sufferfest. This is meant to be played with. This is here to be expressed through. It's here to realize through. It's not here to be forgotten, to get all myopic, to get super attached to what you're seeing and thinking, and then to go through life feeling separate and sorrowful all the time and manipulative and afraid of the world and other people. That's not what it was designed to be. It was designed as a Garden of Eden, as a playful expression of infinite potential. So, we can play, or we can allow the illusion to play through us. We can allow the movie to play and change form and so on, without getting all swallowed up in it, without losing this basic stability that you have. In fact, you can take this basic stability, up the brightness on it, like turning up the light of the sun, like this. So that background stability can actually, instead of just being a stable sort of it can be a zing, which will activate vibrations in your mind-body-spirit complex that will then start to come out in the form of inspiration, meshed with action, less and less fear-based, so more and more free, less and less, with more and more courage, because your state overall is becoming more vividly realized. Go ahead.
I do feel inspiration, but I don't know where to put it in, and I think it comes back to knowing your soul and knowing your purpose.
Beautiful. Great. But are you artificially stopping an inspiration with some doubt? Or do you actually not get any clarity on what action to take?
No, the second.
Okay, sweet. And so then what's the inspiration like? When you get the inspiration, but you lack the knowledge of the proper action, how would you describe that moment of inspiration?
Very practically speaking, or?
Experientially. How does it occur to you? How do you know that you're inspired? What's that feel like?
I mean, I do feel like a white spark, like moving through my body, and
And it comes with some kind of a vision or image?
It depends. I mean, if I put this energy into something, then something comes out. For example, if I try to be creative, doing art or something like that. But with these things, I feel like it's meaningless to do them because I don't see the purpose in it, and it doesn't feel like that's what I should do with this energy.
Okay, sweet. So here you've got a little trap, like a little perspective that's causing the ceiling, the glass ceiling, that's suppressing your energy. Does that make sense? So this is exactly what you're intuitively asking about. What is this? Is there a ceiling? If so, what is it? And how do I dissolve the ceiling? So yes, to know yourself as a soul more clearly. Why are you here? What's your intention, blueprint, desire here specifically? But you must have a perspective, an idea that you picked up somewhere that is judging your moment of inspiration from the filter of it's not worth much, or it doesn't lead to anywhere, or why would I? So that's leaning more towards the nihilism perspective. Do you know why you have that perspective, or what the perspective is? Is it because of spiritual teachings that you've been exposed to that define all that illusion as bad?
No, I don't know. I mean, I couldn't say where exactly the limitation comes from.
But you see inspiration as meaningless.
No, what I do with I don't see what I can do with it. But often it's not like a very precise inspiration in the sense of, okay, inspired to do this, but like an energy or like.
But when you do give action to it, you say it feels good, right? It feels aligned.
In art, for example, yes. In the moment, and then I look at it after, and I'm like, okay, why?
So what's that judgment? Like what you must have a really specific perspective, I believe, an idea that invalidates the expression.
Yeah, I mean, self-doubt or something like that, I guess.
So you didn't pick this up in any spiritual book, this idea. You didn't start judging action as meaningless or irrelevant. No. So it's been with you for a long time? Like you've always sort of felt the meaninglessness of action?
No, only, I mean, as I said in the beginning, it's kind of a back and forth, and I felt kind of depressed at some point, but then I went into like spirituality and meditating, and then it was just becoming this balance, which feels fine. But yeah.
Fine, but not ultimate.
I mean, there are moments that are spectacular and that feel undescribable, but it's clear that you can't have that all the time, and that's why I think it's also good to have the balance and the calm state kind of.
Mm-hmm. But
yeah, again, now I'm stuck. Like that's where I am, and I don't know what to do. I think I'm just circling, and I have to figure it out.
Yeah. So explain the self-doubt. You judge yourself for the action.
Yeah.
Like it's not good enough. That it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll just stop that. Yeah?
It doesn't feel so easy, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the nature of a belief is it always tries to perpetuate itself. A belief system creates a little reality inside of your dream. So it's a sub-dream inside of the daily waking dream. So whatever you believe comes with a respective reality experience, or a flavor, or a nuance, or an angle on the whole thing. And so if you have a belief that your action is not going to be worth much anyway, or it's not going to be appreciated, or it doesn't have that value, or you're not good enough for it, then that's going to be your experience within your overall waking experience. I'm saying this because it's good to recognize when you say it feels difficult, more difficult than just stop doing that. It's because just like every dimension of this dream is designed to be convincing, like the movie is designed to be immersive, within that, a smaller belief system is also the director of your little movie of unworthiness or meaninglessness or not good enoughness. So if you have that belief running, yes, at its own playing field, at its own level, it's going to feel very convincing to you. And it's going to feel like you're stuck in that sense, like he's used that word a few times, stuck. This is not true. It is just a matter of doing this. It really is. But just know, it can help you to do this if you realize that it feels difficult from within the point of view. Just acknowledge that will already shift you. Like, if you just acknowledge, yes, okay, it does feel difficult to just switch it. It doesn't feel that easy. Can you feel that it already becomes easier just by having acknowledged that?
Yeah.
Nice. That's because whenever you acknowledge the nature of the belief system, which in this case is this little telescope, if you don't acknowledge that this is on your face, then good luck, getting beyond it. But if you acknowledge that, okay, this thing is on my face, and it is narrowing my focus, and it is making it seem really difficult, then this happens already, just by acknowledging the belief system, or one of its attributes, or one of its qualities. Have you ever noticed that? When you just admit that something is the way it is, it doesn't feel as threatening anymore. And with anything, like if you need to apologize to someone for maybe you were wrong on a relative interactional level, it feels so threatening to apologize, and then when you actually just say, I'm sorry, you were right. There's this transcendence of that point of view. So the same for any of your beliefs that don't feel naturally expansive, that don't feel naturally free and happy and blissful. If you feel suppressed in some way and you feel stuck in some way, just hyper-acknowledge that point of view. Hyper-acknowledge it. Acknowledge it, acknowledge it, acknowledge it. Just by that act alone, you're going to create space. And now it's going to be easier, like one of the questioners shared, or audience. Now you have choice again as to which perspective to choose, and then it will seem easier. So perfect. You just acknowledge what's present for you. I have this belief that when I act on my inspiration, in the moment it can be great, but then when I reflect upon it with my perspective, I'm kind of not so impressed, or I'm judging it, and therefore that's stifling, that's holding back my more constant flow that would be possible, the brightness that wants to just naturally express, without filter, without judgment. So just to then hyper-acknowledge, hyper simply means extra, a lot. Just in the beginning, to acknowledge, this is my perspective, and it doesn't feel easy to change it. So in a sense, you're admitting defeat to the trickiness and the power of that nasty little belief system that you don't want to have there. But you're accepting, you're admitting that is the way that it feels. It feels like I'm stuck. It feels difficult to get rid of. Then suddenly there's this space that gets created, and something in the back of your mind knows it's not true. Something in you knows that now you do have choice. So that's the power of bringing your presence to whatever is psychologically real for you, even if it's ultimately fake or illusory or optional, like those beliefs. They're not ultimately true. But they feel true. So you bring your presence to what feels true, and you acknowledge it. You write it down. You acknowledge it. And now there's this space. There's the I am over here, the view, and then there's the point of view within the view. There's the view, which is awareness, the I amness, which has a point of view. It's like, oh, who cares about this work of art anyway? No one's going to buy it. Ooh, it's not that useful. It's just a piece of wall in your art on your wall. Anyway, so there's a point of view, and you acknowledge everything you can find about that point of view. And then it's free. It dissolves. Especially if you can stay with the presence of awareness and turn up the brightness there. Not forcing yourself to be more creative or anything like that. You're just acknowledging the limitation. and then it dissolves into view. And the point softens until it's no longer this, but it's just like, and then this natural brightness will increase. Your frequency raises, as they say. Inspiration will hit harder without having to get swallowed up by it. And action will come immediately, like a martial artist. They don't think, process, shall I punch in this way or that way? It's too late. They have the inspiration and they hit. They defend, because it needs to be immediate. That's ultimately when you're resting in awareness. That's how the body-mind will flow more and more. You don't even have to call it inspiration or non-inspiration. You don't have to say, oh, it's reserved for art as opposed to schoolwork. It's all the same inspiration. It's all the same consciousness expressing itself, really. You're just not filtering it. I had zero preparation being here. Like, there is no doubt, there is no question, there is no preparation, no notebook, nothing for being here, because it's not needed. And you can call that inspiration, but it's just being what you are, being in the presence of what you are, and then letting that free flow happen. And you're just staying in the awareness of it all, like a celebration. All the form is a celebration of this formlessness. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. How much time we have left? 35. Gentleman in the back, by the pillar, sorry?
35 minutes.
35 minutes. You want to ask a question from there or from here? Can we give him a mic? One second.
Gotcha. Hi.
Hey.
So, let's say we all kind of awaken from this scene and start maybe seeing this whole movie. Then maybe the next step would be to feel the urge to maybe direct it. What's your take on manifestation?
Yeah. Well, manifestation is an inevitable part of this whole thing. You cannot have a moment of experience without there being an experience. So in my book, manifestation is experience. It's not a real thing. Just like in your dream at night, manifestation would be whatever you're dreaming up. There's not a real, tangible, solid matter reality behind it. It's consciousness intelligently, magically, mind-bogglingly producing a convincing hallucination dream experience that seems tangible, real, and consistent, especially in the waking world. But remember, your dream at night also seems consistent when you're dreaming, even though the weirdest shit happens. It makes no difference. If you're suddenly in China, you don't care. It's like normal. You don't question it. That's part of normal reality in your dream. Again, every playing field has its own directive. Things feel real on that level. That's why it's difficult to sort of pop out of this. You got to go real deep in your investigations. But okay, so manifestation, first of all, is not materialization, because there is no matter in my experience. That is the illusion, that there is matter, that there is an external, something outside of aware beingness. In my experience, that does not exist. I lay this out in great detail in my book. So if you're interested in why, I try to logically explain why and how, and kind of go against some of the pitfalls of science, materialism. But okay, so first of all, manifestation can have this feeling of, okay, I'm going to take something that's in my mind and thoughts, and I'm going to make it real, right? So that's not how it works. The thought is just as real as the thing. Same nature. You could say, okay, the thought is a subtler form of it, and then you have a more tangible physical form. Okay, if you want to make that distinction, you can make that distinction. But basically, everything is manifestation. Everything perceivable, everything experiential is some form of manifestation. Even subtler states of consciousness, if it has a quality to it whatsoever, it's manifestation, ultimately. It could be formless, it could be universal. If it has a quality, it's still manifestational. Or you could say imaginal. It's still God's imagination. God's point of view. So first of all, I don't see manifestation as something that goes from inside to outside. It all is inside. And it's seamless, it's continuous. But I think your real question is, what are my thoughts or recommendations, if any, on the sort of art of manifesting your desired reality, or exercising some form of directive control over what you experience, right? That's the nature of your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's. I'm just very curious about the way you think maybe this dream can be directed.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, there's so many tools, and I have dived into this deeply myself as well, but I decided to write a book on it, and the first book is about enlightenment. It's about waking up to this and beyond. The second book is about the ego construct, how the psychology works, how does this ego affect, how is it made up, what is its strategy, what is its goal, how can you understand it, how can you transcend it and deal with it honestly to help you soften the pot, so to speak, and have a more universally enlightened, continuous experience, joyfully, effortlessly. Book 3 will be on the nature of purpose and relevance. So nowadays, although I have in the past taught manifestation sort of as an aspect on its own, and you can still find videos like that on YouTube where I speak on these topics. So if you're looking for methods and ways to view your reality that can help you accelerate your desired manifestations, you can look those up on YouTube. But nowadays, to me, it's all integrated into what truly matters, what will actually satisfy the seeker. And so I do teach about relevance and purpose and becoming and how you can change your reality and how you can switch timelines, but I do it from the background understanding, the backbone understanding of why it's even here in the first place, so that the seeker doesn't go isolate this particular method and tool and, uses all these affirmations in the mirror and waste their time. If you're fat, you're fat. I mean, you can say you're thin all you want, but then that's a waste of time unless you're doing it for the right reasons. And this is the thing, if we don't do it for the right reasons, it's just going to take us back into those illusions again, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to call us back. The GPS starts bleeping again. So there's nothing wrong with understanding that you can exercise influence over your manifest experience. I naturally utilize this, all the time. Naturally. Yeah?
But how about programming that GPS?
Okay, so with the GPS, is beyond you. So what I'm saying is the GPS is not something you made up. It's the physics of creation. It's the guidance system. And again, more would be needed to explain this, but essentially, the GPS is not something you program. It's something that responds to your programming, to let you know if your programming is on point or not. So you can reprogram your mind all you want. The emotional guidance system will never be in your control. So you can drive left or you can drive right, you can do what it says or not, but you cannot reprogram your GPS. It's going to take you to that destination. And God bless, thank God for that. Can you imagine human beings with their deluded apeshit minds guiding themselves from a spiritual perspective? Like with this, trying to control all their parallel realities and what's best for them, why they came here to learn and what they came here to express. So thank God, from this level of consciousness, you cannot reprogram your GPS. We try all the time, and it's called resistance. Right? It's resisting your own guidance. Like, why is this thing bleeping? I don't like the fucking bleep, and I don't understand the bleep. What am I supposed to do? I don't know, so please shut up, higher self. And then, the next occurrence, the higher self is like, okay, all right. But the bleep just gets louder. Actually, I rented a fucked up little car that it just kept bleeping until someone punched in my window and stole my backpack. That solved the bleeping. And I was asking for the bleeping to stop, the sound bleeping, and so this robber helped me stop the bleeping. So be specific in what you ask, I suppose. But it worked. Like, yes, my backpack was stolen, and but the bleeping did stop, so that was nice. So we try to, and maybe this is why it happens, because I've never been robbed in that sense. Like, why? And like, I go to fucking Mexico, I go to Colombia, I go to South Africa, I go to Egypt, and then I'm here in Holland, like, stay in your lane, bleep, bleep, ding, ling, ling, whoop, whoop, left, stop, oh, okay, right, boom, boom, boom. And then on a fucking golf course, of all places, you know, someone taps in my car window. What are the odds? So, but now the bleeping makes sense, right? And having to request for it properly. But anyway, so your emotional guidance system will always guide you to take a U-turn if you're off course. And again, thank God that we cannot reprogram that. Actually, the GPS is asking us to reprogram according to its guidance. It's asking us to either stop or take a right turn or a left turn. So we got to, in a sense, develop the humility. And this is where the manifestation techniques and teachings can often sort of forget this aspect, because it's tempting for the ego to just create what it wants and to sort of bypass or try to reframe the GPS system. Can only work for so long. So yes, absolutely nothing wrong with the joy of knowing your power to wish for something and have it appear. Beautiful, lovely, wonderful. But what it is, it's a confirmation and celebration of Source. It's not something you did and owned, because you did it by no strength of your own physical mind or physical body. It was a communication with yourself as Source, as the One, that facilitated that. There's only one power, there's only one force in all of existence. Only one. And yes, that is you, but it's not this little monkey brain. So it's important to not take credit for your manifestational powers, but to rejoice in it, to give it back to God, to like, wonderful, thy will be done. Look at this. It is through my Father that I can do these miracles. It's by myself alone I cannot do anything. Right? I'm paraphrasing Jesus. God forbid. Sorry. But, sorry. So wonderful, beautiful. This is continuously sources flickering in and out of existence, okay? Billions of times per second. That's why there is motion. It's motion, picture after picture after picture, into the nothingness, infinite potential, and then the next most obvious flicker of perception happens. So continuously this is flickering in and out of existence like a light switch, so fast that you don't notice that half the time nothing is here. Because like a kitty cat brain, you only see what has form. But if you learn to see the formless, then you see that half the time, equally so, nothing is here. You see the great, vast, perfect emptiness at the same time as you see this. So it's seamless. Manifestation is not something a person does. It just looks that way because we have a desire. So we start to make a vision board for that desire that usually comes from lack beliefs. Like, oh, I don't have enough, or I want more of this, or I got to prove myself. Then we put that on a vision board as if we're doing that, and then we're creating it, and then we're celebrating that. Nothing really wrong with that, but there's so many pitfalls there that we lose ourselves again in this ego effect, and we hurt and we suffer because we're not with God. We're not listening to the real GPS. So as long as you understand your purpose and the relevance of your illusion appropriately from a deeper level, then the manifestational techniques and the clarity of how that sort of seamlessly works through your consciousness can become very known, because then they're in safe hands. You're going to be a shepherd. You're going to be surrendered to God and to your deeper intelligence, to where you're not going to go, hey, I'm going to take all this power and do something cool with it because my friends will really adore me for it. So there's many pitfalls to those teachings if they're taken out of context, if they're not part of a holistic system of God realization. So in book 3, when the time comes, I will explain all this, but there is teachings available on this also by others besides myself, as you probably know. I don't know if that satisfied your question. Let me know.
Partially, but thanks.
Sorry? Partially?
Partially, but thanks.
Yeah. Do you have another part to that?
Well, I'm kind of I kind of believe that maybe this life can be influenced a little bit, as in, take maybe a bit the steering wheel in your hands and drive towards a destination that you create your own. And basically, that's putting in the GPS coordinates, right?
I see.
And then in the meantime, life happens, and you just have to deal with whatever is being thrown in front of you. But I do think that maybe you can call that manifestation, like focusing on what you would really like. And this is not about the red Ferrari, but this is about trying to follow your heart, basically.
Cool.
I guess. Then that could be the direction, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking about materialistic stuff. I'm more talking about like following.
Yeah.
And then basically, maybe that coincides with what you're telling. Then basically that means that I'm trying to feel what my GPS is telling me.
Wonderful. How much time do I have? 20 minutes? Okay, cool. So, okay, you all have a natural knowing right now of, how should I put this, what you're supposed to be doing. Sounds a bit like, high school teacher says student what to do. But I'm using these words because this is how you can find it internally. So go, and it's part of why you feel the procrastination and guilt and unworthiness background feeling that's always sort of with you. Unless you have a really fucking successful day, but even then it disappears soon after. So, what is this sense that's just constantly knocking on your door? Just this gnawing sensation of not good, never good enough. It's never perfect, right? Everyone knows this? It's telling you what to do. Two sides to this coin. One, it's asking you to remember what you are. Prioritize God, see your essence, the essence of aware being. And simultaneously, on a relative expression level, it's also telling you what to do. It's also guiding you how to follow your heart, so to speak, as we've sort of coined it often. What's your calling? What's your purpose? What's your relevance? The thing is, with this, it's important to not get lost in intellect. You all know what's calling you towards what. Right now, you might doubt this. Just let the doubt be there. Don't try to change it. But also don't believe it. Right now, you know what's knocking on your door. There is some sensation. You know you're meant to step on that stage and do this thing. Or you know that you're meant to start this business idea you've had for a while now. Or you know that you're supposed to have this particular life-changing conversation with your partner. So don't just think about it in terms of what's my destiny going to be 30 years down the line. That's a different exercise. It can also be clarifying. But what I'm talking about here, just to give you this in the next few minutes, which solves the whole manifestation query and makes it holistic and simple and actionable directly. And that's right now, if you're honest, you know what your next step ideally is supposed to be. You know it. You're just afraid of it. That's all. You don't have to figure out what it is. You already know it. You're just scared shitless. Acknowledge that. That's a way faster route than trying to okay, why am I here? What should I do? What should I manifest? Is this a pure desire, or is it coming from ego? Is this my higher self, or is this my gremlin? No. Stop thinking. You know what the next step is today, tonight. You just won't do it. At least that gives you clarity, gives you honesty. It's not difficult. You're not confused. You're just afraid. Right? So if we're honest with ourselves, we're not confused, we're just scared. And then the fear will project all these reasons and justifications and detours and avoidances, and then we're confused. But at the core of it, you know what you're supposed to be doing, you just don't like the idea of it. The GPS is bleeping, but you're resisting the sound. You don't want to look on the screen because you know it's going to take you to the next challenge. And it's always going to carry you into your next challenge, otherwise you will not grow. You will not expand. So don't worry about manifestation. Source has got that for you. There's only one power in all of existence, and it's not your little mind. It's not the thinker. Thoughts are also manifest. How can he create anything? Only source can create something. If it's already created, if it already has a quality, it means it has a source and it didn't create itself. A thing cannot come from nothing. There's something prior to everything. And if you bring this back down all the way to source level, it's infinity itself, which cannot be described. It's before any consciousness of any experience, of any creation arose. Can be realized. It's tough, but it can be realized directly. You can know this directly. So don't worry about manifestation because it's not in your hands in that sense. If you want the optimal manifestation for you, you got to look at why you're scared, and you got to take that leap of faith. You got to be courageous to listen to what you already know is the next step you should take. This natural impulse. The seeking goes both ways. It goes towards the Creator to know itself, and it goes into creation to express itself. And so you have dual purpose, to realize yourself or remember yourself and to express or manifest or give form to yourself. Okay? Only one of these two is ultimately real, but both are valid. You get that distinction? Just because something is unreal doesn't mean it doesn't serve a purpose. Difference between real and valid or even valuable. The illusion can be valuable, but it's never going to be real. Its nature simply is not real. So only God, you could say, is real. Your dream is not real, but it doesn't make it invalid. We just have to understand it in the proper context, the proper hierarchy. And then you will see that your seeking impulse goes both ways. It goes forward and backwards. It goes outward and inward at the same time. It goes towards God, give everything back to God, know God, recognize God, the oneness of all things. There's only one power. I am that I am. I am aware. I am, I am, I am. And at the same time, therefore, fearless natural expression, unfiltered, like the martial artist who has an inspiration and it moves by itself. Why do you not move by yourself? And then start asking questions about manifestation and lack. I don't have enough of this. I don't have enough of that. How can I create more of this? It's not because you're lacking anything. It's because you're stopping the flow because you're afraid of what you know you must do. What you've already chosen for yourself. This is where free will and predeterminism kind of come hand in hand. You have pre-chosen, predetermined for yourself what you're here to be and express and do. Now it's your free will to fear that or to trust that. But your river is flowing. Whether you're holding on to the boulder, getting all that higher self water in your face, stop. Or you can let go of the boulder and have the time of your life. And sure, there'll be a few moments where it's like, whoa, hold my hat. But, so what? What's worth more? Living in fear and suppression and having all these questions and even becoming spiritually significant? Or doing what you know you should be doing? Just do it. Yes. Yes, I think, is this on? The standing mic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Not yet.
Can you hear me now?
Maybe there's a switch. Or maybe not.
So now, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is a little bit weird. I hear myself here. So I feel very excited with this last piece that you shared, because this is exactly where I have been personally struggling with, because for more than 15 years I was on this spiritual path, and what I have discovered recently through a health challenge that I had, I was really knocked in my bed and stripped off my lifestyle, energy, and everything. Yeah. Yes, exactly. There was a lot of blessings arising through that, but it also feels a little bit confusing because all of this spiritual journey was very juicy. It was very exciting. There was this evolution of becoming interested, discovering something new, devotion, and everything. But through this health challenge, what I discovered is also that it was being driven by wanting to feel more comfortable in my skin. Although I was verbalizing it as I wanted to have this enlightenment or something like that, which was very vague in my head, but it was driven actually with trying to have a better experience, to feel good in my skin, to feel comfortable with myself in all sorts of situations, to escape fear. So I was surprised that a lot of these spiritual ideas I was enjoying, this searching, was actually a form of escape from life. Probably not completely, because I notice I still value truth. And going back to this health issue, what has been shown to me very, very strongly is that because this experience was very strong in contrast, so I could not sleep at nights. I would pray and cry, I don't know, but I noticed that I'm completely alone in this raw experience. And all of this is happening in this awareness, which actually doesn't care about this experience. And the next day, there will be a lot of peace and happiness and everything. So I notice also this is happening in this same space. So, and this contrast was going on so long. So, and now I find myself where the same things that you have also shared with spiritual concepts and so forth, that I could also discuss with other people, as it is as if something has pulled out this spiritual brain out of my head, and everything became overly complex. Like I can really unnecessarily complex. So I'm not sure if I'm expressing myself clearly enough. And the last thing has remained that you have addressed here is that also parallel to this, there is another process for the first time where I really want to jump into life with everything. So where in past I would meditate to come into this nice state before I meet people, now, because I didn't have energy to do that, now I just show up as I am.
Wonderful.
So, but I feel as if now I don't belong anywhere. I don't belong in the spiritual world.
Thank
because
God.
I notice people are still in this state of avoidance unconsciously. But I also don't belong into this completely crazy world also outside. So I feel alone a little bit.
Yeah.
But also very excited with what you said. Like there's this pull backwards, whereas this still a little bit of, I guess I'm scared that I will lose myself now in this world, because this spirituality was such a big part of my life, like 70 years. And there's this, perhaps this scary feeling that, oh, what if I am delusioning?
Yeah.
Yeah, you understand, I think.
Great. Well, thank you so much. The beauty of this, taking 2 to 5 seconds to just drop all your points of view, including those when they come up for you, including the fear of losing yourself in the world, for instance. Or when you feel like, okay, maybe there's a choice point. Should I like meditate and become spiritual again? Or should I just go to Las Vegas and confidently, within my own skin, meet people and do fun stuff or whatever? Obviously, they're not that black and white, but the mind will project that there's two realities to choose from often. And if you just let that point of view, which again, it's just a point of view, it's just a lens through which you are judging what's occurring. If you let that be for a few seconds, you just give it back to God, and you rest in, I am aware. Just that, just notice it. Notice awareness. Then where's the problem? Then the next moment arises. You meet that friend. It feels both meditative and confidently open at the same time. All because you're resting in I am. You're not losing yourself. How could you?
Can I add?
Yes, please.
From this point, it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels so natural, so human, so normal. Where on the path of spirituality, I was looking to become special, to become, and I feel now that I'm exactly the same as I was always, so I didn't become special. It feels so good. It feels so
Yeah.
true, human. And I guess what I also have a little bit of doubt is you were speaking about this other experience, like big experience. And I have completely became disinterested in these special experiences, because it is fine, because I had these experiences and they all come and go, and I find myself in this human body experiencing all of the other stuff. And it's true what you say, there is always this place of like you cannot talk about it. It is, everything is happening in it. So for me now this is perfectly fine. And when I hear you talking about there is another potential, something else, right? This greater field of something else to know, I don't feel again to go search for that. Is that okay?
It's totally okay. So, yeah, excellent. The thing is, you can, in my experience, you can never stop seeking. Only source can end your seeking. So what I see a lot in spirituality is some techniques, some insights, some one-trick pony hack, or a way to see like, oh, everything is just happening by itself. Perspectives like that, a lot of which I'll address next week. Not saying this about you, I'm very generalizing right now. This doesn't feel like what you're dealing with. But just to explain, perspectives can suppress the seeking, both to go forward as well as to know your source. Both of these can be stifled, can be suppressed by spiritual perspectives, by intellectualism, by concepts, by non-dualism, by emptiness, by Buddhism, by nihilism, by whatever. There's so many little traps out there, okay? So what I always want the seeker to know is that please appreciate your seeking impulse. Do not fear it. The only reason you fear it is because the moment you excavate, you've buried it, some of you, under concepts, whether psychological concepts, spiritual concepts, whatever. The only reason you fear feeling the seeking, that energy, that restlessness, more special experiences, is because of the way we filtered that through fear and so on. So yes, take it at your own pace. I just want everyone to know, don't try to artificially stop seeking by taking on a perspective, even if it's a non-dual perspective or a Buddhist enlightened perspective. Oh, there is nobody here to seek anything. All right, good luck. Only source can end your seeking. You cannot end your own seeking. Ever, ever, ever. You can go 1,000,000 lifetimes as a suppressed Buddhist practitioner, and you will still be seeking. It's just underneath the surface. You've chosen not to feel it. Okay? It's a very painful state to be, even though it feels, to the ego, it feels a little bit more pleasant than, oh my God, I feel this energy. I want to go somewhere. What should I do? I'm confused. Oh my God, okay, so I get addicted to this and that. And so yes, obviously there's work to be done in terms of understanding this GPS and the seeking impulse. But first and foremost, please understand that you will never stop seeking. It will stop on its own, or it will change, it will transmute into a different kind of form or inspiration. Only source can end your seeking. You can never end your seeking. And source ultimately is that absolute reality which exists even before that peaceful consciousness. So in terms of, but that's not a special experience. Although if we're talking about that, it sounds like that. But so what you're doing is really great. You're walking this beautiful, fine balance, I feel, of first having been in sort of camp spirituality, maybe before that camp materialism, but then you went camp spirituality for 15 years. And often what comes with camp spirituality, which is just as artificial as any other camp, is all these concepts and spiritual experiences and chasing that. It's still a misdirection of our seeking impulse. So now it sounds like you're not suppressing your seeking, but you got to check with this if you're not suppressing it. As long as you don't suppress the seeking, if it's just a natural, like, you know what? I don't care about these special states, or I don't care about this or that. I really, in a sense, don't care about that whole spiritual concept anymore. And it's bringing you back to a balanced, confident, lucid presence that you're able to navigate through the world with, or at least the illusion of one, with a confidence that you cannot quite describe, but it's here. There's a presence. You have contact with it. It's not an experience, but it is experiential. Difference. It's experiential, but it's not an experience. Does it make sense? You can have an experience which comes and goes. The awareness of it all is experientially realized, but is not itself an experience. It's the experiencer that's constantly experiencing. It's the nature of the experiences, the basis. That's not a special experience in that sense. So as long as you allow for that to naturally turn up its brightness, as it comes, as you wish, you can do that deliberately. You can tune up that brightness, just like you can focus on my left hand or my right hand. Simple. Doesn't mean you have to go seeking in that sense.
So you said focus on the awareness.
Yeah, let's say you're talking to me here right now. You can either think about what you're saying, or like be here and like focus on my lips and my eyes and how I'm coming across and you're coming across and what I think of you and what you should be saying. Or you can rest in awareness. Recognize that brightness and then, hey, look, I'm not speaking but I'm speaking. I'm not thinking but I'm thinking. I'm not thinking what to say at all. I don't know what's going to come out next, but it's coming out. I'm not articulating anything. Literally right now I have zero thoughts. And yet I'm talking to you. And it seems to make sense. A few people are laughing and you ask a question, I give an answer, but I'm not thinking about anything. How is that possible? Because thought is not something you do. It's just another object in the room. Thought here, thought there, pillar over there, lamp, another thought over there, thought over here. Awareness holds all of that. So what people call flow state, when they're really adrenalized or they're hanging off a cliff or they're like racing a car or they're channeling their artwork or whatever, when they really get into that zone, to me, this is natural. This is all the time pretty much. And so that's just because of the physics of seeing through the illusion and then being able to be established in this awareness. So great, and I'm going to let you speak more, but so far, a little synopsis of this so far is, overall, it feels really awesome what you're saying, and I'm super happy for you. Feels balanced overall. And don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't throw the baby of genuine increase in illumination out with the concept that you picked up in the past of special experiences and spiritual states.
It doesn't feel, but thank you for this. So what you are saying is it doesn't feel like that because it doesn't feel my choice. And actually it feels freeing and also very uncomfortable at the same time because I lost all of my crutches that I before had. Also there is also this emotional aspect of spirituality and devotion and everything. So it feels like I'm unprotected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, feels more free than everything, and it feels scary because there is no savior, or all of these spiritual fantasies that I was carrying, they are not here anymore. So
wonderful.
It's scary and true freedom. It's like
beautiful.
Not something that I would really want. Yeah, but
this is awesome. But so what you're saying is effectively, yeah, nice. Well, what you're describing is genuine, and I see this as a spectrum. It's not on or off, but this is a form of awakening. It is a level of awakening that's happened for you. It's just the way you're internalizing it is slightly in reaction to your past. So the way that you're framing it sounds a little bit still like, okay, it's a reaction to what you did before. Because that's the contrast you're noticing. But the contrast is a natural consequence of raising your awareness. And so even those subtle descriptions that your mind comes up with because of the contrast of what came before and what you have now and how it feels and the differences, all good. It's all awareness. God damn it. I lost my train of thought.
the contrast of the experience and
exactly.
Unconsciously looking back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and so that's what I meant with, okay, those are still points of view.
Yeah.
And they're relevant and they make sense to your mind. They explain what's happening.
Yeah.
They give it the right context. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But just take that lightly as well, so that you can rest even more in that comfort that is outshining the discomfort. It's just here, the naturalness.
It's funny because I was imagining this awakening, yet it came more as a disillusionment.
Disillusionment.
And there was at a certain point still is sort of like a grieving process. Like I lost.
That's fine. Yeah.
That's fine.
Totally fine. Totally fine. Everything that arises in response to an awakening or a shift in consciousness, none of it is bad. You just want to make sure you don't overly describe it, because then you turn it into a thing again.
Okay.
Right? So just that.
Yeah.
So when I say actually it's fine, it doesn't mean keep thinking that thought, even though that's fine too, I guess. But I'm saying it's so fine that you don't have to keep thinking that thought. That's how fine it is. And your vulnerability is not vulnerability. It's no, it's okay. This first row is having a blast. God damn it.
The vulnerability is not vulnerability.
It's authenticity. No, it's a result of your awakening. It's fantastic. It's beautiful.
Okay,
it's
awesome.
an increase in authenticity / transparency / courage. And that comes because, for lack of a better word, not to sound spiritual, but you've up-leveled your level of awareness. As a result, things will change, shift. There's a contrast between what came before. 2 years from now, you're not going to describe this contrast, because then there will be a different contrast. There will be a deeper nuance, a clearer illumination. Awesome. There will be something else to describe or not describe. But I'm saying this is an organic trajectory of awakening. Also beware of teachings that say either you're full of shit or you're fully enlightened. Right? Like either you're an egotistical asshole and everything you do just proves that you're not worthy yet, or you're enlightened and there's nothing, see it more as a spectrum. And it is a parabolic curve. At first, the progress tends to be slow, and then it accelerates and accelerates and accelerates. And you could say there's an end point, which is realization of absolute reality, but even then, within the dream, it's still an infinite torus of expression and knowledge. So don't see it as an end line. Don't see it as a right or wrong. See it as a trajectory. And the brighter you make this I amness, which is not the same as chasing a special experience. So you're not chasing a special experience, but it is fucking magnificent when you turn up the dial.
Okay.
So it's not ordinary, it's not basic non-dualism, everything is fucking happening by itself. No, it's not that. That's not awakening, that's a ceiling. That's a concept. It's a subtle concept. You want to go past that concept when you want to. You don't have to, but this does not apply to you directly.
I'm very curious, what you're
Sweet.
say,
Well, maybe next week if you are free.
We are on vacation. But
He's
okay,
going to Croatia, he doesn't know yet.
Oh, nice. There you go.
So awesome.
So Croatia will be about this last segment that you said you were interested in, of the fearless saying yes to what you know you should be showing up as.
And just to imagine that my heart was pounding throughout the day because I had a feeling that I will get this chance. And just this idea that I haven't taken this chance today, it will be horrible. So I'm so happy
you did it.
That I got a chance to talk with you.
And that's nice. Great. So again, this is a little testimony of how awakening or an increase, again, see it as a dimmer switch. You can turn it up or you can turn it down. It's not an on or off. It's a... So, and the brighter it is, the more everything falls into place. The more your vulnerability and fear becomes embraced with courage and transparency. So the embodiment aspect and the resolution aspect and the integrity aspect, the honor, the fearlessness aspect, the self-expression aspect, all these subsidiaries or subsets of awakening naturally take care of themselves when you have sort of a shift in awakening, in consciousness, when you see it from a vaster view. So wonderful, thank you so much.
One last practical question. The dimmer you said is just to take some time and just to sit for a couple of minutes.
The dinner?
The dimmer you said just to increase the dimmer.
Yes.
You say that is possible. So practically that would look like just taking some time and just remaining as I am.
Yeah, so look at my left hand, if you can see it. This is left for you, in case you were wondering. Look at this hand, and now, okay, look at it for like 5 seconds. Just this hand. Ignore this one. This is life testing you. So, and now switch to this hand. So it's simple.
Yeah.
But why it's difficult, why quote-unquote enlightenment is difficult and weird and we spend so many years seeking and figuring it out, is because it doesn't have a form. But the way to recognize it is just the same as looking left instead of right. Okay, so what you want to do is don't overcomplicate awakening. Try to identify, and yes, there might be some seeking involved in this, so what? Figure it out, find this, even if it takes you the next 3 months. Okay? Find out what is meant with awareness in your direct experience. What's meant with God? God's essence, presence. What's meant with I am? Just do yourself that favor, struggle your ass off if you must, find out what it actually, how you can recognize it, have a taste of God in your consciousness directly. Then, once you're able to identify, oh, I exist. It doesn't look like that pillar, it doesn't look like this light bulb, it doesn't sound like my voice, but clearly I exist. And this continuous I amness is naturally perpetual. It's here now. Awareness is here now. I'm not doing it, but it's here now. I'm not doing it, but it's here now. I cannot escape it, it is here now. Okay, so once you've identified that formless awareness experientially, beyond your thinking, stop thinking, recognize awareness. Stop thinking, notice the clarity of being. Stop thinking, notice that you exist. Once you find that enlightenment switch, and everyone can do this, just start flipping the fuck out of it. Throughout your day, just start flipping it. Just start noticing, instead of looking at my left and right hand, instead of looking at whatever else you can look at I am. 2 to 5 seconds, repeatedly. This will break the chain of false command. And it will put God back into its rightful seat. And it will put you back into unity with it, which leads to liberation, ever greater bliss. Then you can turn up the brightness. The more you focus on that awareness, the more you give everything to it, the more you surrender and trust it completely and implicitly, the more every part of you will be informed by this intelligence, at which point you can fulfill your destiny without a single thought if you choose to. Does that help?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for this demonstration of authenticity. Are we out of time? Okay, cool. Okay, very briefly, what did you have to say? I may not be able to answer it, but... One second, I cannot hear what you're saying.
I was wondering why this event isn't in a sort of Garden of Eden-like place.
Yeah,
instead of on
you're
a
hired.
rooftop.
PR team for next, or marketing team for next year or something. Organization.
No, it's for real. Like why on a rooftop on a building instead of on a garden?
Well,
of
first
Eden,
of all,
like
the Garden of Eden, or the Kingdom of Heaven, really, is a state. It's not a place. But I agree in the sense that things will and can be more idyllic. Honestly, to me, it depends on the desire and the spark of the seekers. The more that spark is there, the more that interest is there, the more things will beautifully manifest around that in ways that will represent that as well. For instance, I think 700 people registered and only 300 people showed up. So, or maybe a little bit more after break, I don't know. It seems like it's slightly more dense. But just as an example, it's like, okay, it's a free event, right? People sign up, they register, and only 40% of the people that register even show up. Like the gremlin doesn't want to be here, the ego doesn't want to be here. It's a barometer. This whole God tour is a barometer of where the people are at. It's just a little test. And I'm having fun giving it in the meantime, and I do my best, and I love you guys. But it's also a test to see what's happening. how ready and willing are people. Because we can create heaven on earth, we can make this an idyllic expression naturally, again, naturally, holistically. But it's a co-creative effort. I cannot impose upon your realities. You cannot impose upon mine. We can only agree to up-level the whole thing, but we need to be sparked. We need to be lit, which is why I'm doing these talks, which is why I'm doing it for free. So perhaps you know it's for real. It's not for any other gain. We're putting all of our own money in it, whatever little was left, to make this happen, right? So I don't know how else to prove to you that we're sincere about what we want to accomplish. But it is a barometer. It's like, okay, are you interested? And if you gauge your own energy levels right now, those of you who stayed here, which I think is the vast majority, which is nice, thank you. If you gauge your energy now with the start of today, can you notice a qualitative shift? Can you notice a sparked interest? Like, oh my God, okay, there's something real here. There's a potential here. I'm excited about excavating this ability to free myself. So at least I feel more of that in the room right now. So obviously we would like that all over the world. And I do believe this stuff should be free as much as possible. I think it should go everywhere. And then we'll create Gardens of Eden everywhere as a representation. But it is a representation. You are still in the garage, in the basement of your own mind, in the basement of your own potential. As a whole collective, this is not meant as an insult to anyone personally. It's just a reflection of, because obviously you guys were here and you stayed till the end. So I fully appreciate that and I commend that. Yes, thank you so much.
So how can we get the ego on board?
How can we get the ego on board? Well, I'm reading a book at the moment. So yeah, I do want to thank you guys, but this is how it happens. Sometimes we need a little nudge, because we become our environment if we're not careful. If we're not fully enlightened, we become our environment. We're going to match the frequency of our environment, the people around us, what's normalized. So all it takes is 4 hours in a different container here, where we have a different kind of dialogue. We point our attention in a different way. You wake up to what you are capable of. You hear people sharing authentically, having questions you've had before or still have or will have. It creates community, it creates sincerity, it creates friendship at a whole other level that feels more real and transparent. This doesn't take much. It just takes people showing up. But then again, if for even a free event, only 40% of who registers actually shows up, then, there's your, which doesn't define you because you are here. But that's the difference. And that's the barometer of where humanity is at. And hopefully over time, more and more people will awaken to this innate ability. We'll get access to education.
Maybe because it's free, then people
There's that, right? But again, totally right. So, and we considered this. Should we charge €5? Just because the Dutch mindset would then be like, well, I paid €5, so I better go get my money's worth. So, and my dad even recommended that. He said, or he at least, raised the consideration. I said, yeah, I agree. That's one that's one possibility. But we really, from our standpoint, want to just make it sincerely free. Like, okay, no, this is entirely free. And we're not upselling anything. Yes, we have a few retreats, but those, like all the funds for that will go into making all this possible in retrospect anyway. So I don't feel bad about having a couple of paid events in there. It's just what was needed to make this, to kickstart it. But we want these freedom talks to feel free, no matter what. And then it's up to the people whether they show up or not. So we don't want to trick them like, okay, because you already paid, then you will come. It's like, no, it's a barometer, it's a test. Do you want to come? For what? Just for yourself, like for your own realization. Not because you paid for it. You want to come because you want this, yeah, right? So, and that's just a collective rise that's slowly happening. But then again, if we don't create events like this, opportunities like this, free material like this, people will be too much in their own environment, energetically, and so it is nice to have events like this. And but at the end of the day, you guys got to bring this into your life, create this community, remind each other, practice the teachings, read the book once it's out soon, or follow whatever you want to follow. But raise your will, raise your energy, like pay attention. Choose what you are here to be and listen to that impulse, both outwardly and inwardly. Okay, I love you. Thank you so much. we wish to make true spirituality, the true direct knowledge of God, commonplace knowledge. Because this is about accessing the real self, the freedom, the potential, the possibility, our understanding of God. That's what this tour is all about. It is about returning God to the people, which is already in the making in the collective consciousness anyway. We're just supporting its further ignition, its acceleration. And so can you, if you wish to participate.